My name's Eric. I'm the founder at Demand Collective. I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch this event. When I was an in-house growth leader, the number one thing that I wanted from any content that I was consuming, especially virtual events, was real, practical, useful takeaways from practitioners who are actually doing the work right now, not thought leaders or vendors masquerading their content as thought leadership, but real people doing the work right now. So that's what I tried to do with this event is to find seven of the smartest practitioners I could from companies like Datadog and Glean and Pave and ask them what's actually working for them right now. And that's what we did. And they deliver those in quick 20-minute sessions. So I really hope you enjoy this event. As with everything we do in Demand Collective, our private Slack community, our weekly newsletter, all of these events are only possible because of our amazing sponsors. So if you're struggling with any of these pain points, I highly recommend you check them out. These are all tools that I personally vetted and I personally recommend. You have CaliberMind, solve attribution for enterprise complexity, SeamAI, the AI native Sixth Sense, Scrunch to help you optimize your website for how agents browse and then vector person level ads. So that's it. Please enjoy the event. If you have any feedback, if you have any questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. Enjoy.
Okay, now we have our first session. Kevin's one of the smartest ABM practitioners I know. I was blown away by his sophistication and how in the weeds he is. And for some reason, he was like, "Yeah, I'll share it with you guys here. I'll bring you inside ABM's Datadog machine." So, Kevin, the stage is yours. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Eric. I mean, I think it might be a slight exaggeration. I don't know if I'm one of the smartest, but I think I've got an angle that is interesting at the very least. So we'll see.
Funniest, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. All right. So
That's the best. Sorry.
the best is happening. That's true. I'm excited to take you guys through kind of how we do ABM at Datadog and kind of what my perspective is. So this is, if there's one thing you leave with from my perspective, it's stop optimizing for warm accounts and start optimizing for meetings. And ultimately, I didn't mean to quote myself here, but I really do believe if you can get to meetings, pipe will take care of itself. Sales will figure out what to do once they have the understanding of an account well enough from meetings. And I've told this anecdote a number of times, but the reason that I am obsessed with this idea of meetings is because I really don't believe that you can get anywhere without understanding an account from the inside. We, at a last job running ABM, had one account. I can't name the exact account, but they own a very large theme park in Florida. So I think you can probably do the math on several of them. Very good signals on the website, seeing all these hits, right? ICP fit, everything was perfect about the account. The rep was excited about it, but we couldn't break in. Couldn't get any meetings, 9 months. Lots of website traffic, visiting, docs pages, visiting, all the types of things that indicate deep interest. Finally got a meeting after about 9 months, and ultimately we saw that the account was just using us as an RFP compare for the platform that their CFO really wanted. And that was heartbreaking. We had spent tens of thousands of dollars on advertising, on events, trying to engage with this account, and yet nothing was happening. And the answer why was because we never had a meeting. We never actually got in front of someone who could have told us this 3, 4, 5, 6 months before. And that's when I became completely focused on how can ABM support optimizing for meetings? How can ABM support more reps getting more meetings with accounts? Because ultimately, I think that's how deals are done, at least at the enterprise level. I think what I've seen a lot of teams do is just kind of stop at accounts, right? Like they just want to get the accounts warm. They want to see the website traffic go up and they want to report that back and say, hey, we warmed up the account. Sales is your turn. But a lot of times losing the ability to say who or what is responsible for this increase in traffic and interest and engagement, whatever your metric is called, ultimately I don't think is good enough. And I don't think that helps you get sales buy-in, which is one of the most important things for ABM. What does, in my opinion and in my experience, give you sales buy-in is giving them names to call into, giving them warm leads to book meetings with. And ultimately, that's how I run and optimize everything at Datadog for ABM. And just as like a real result, right? When we run PG sprints, we call them PG days here, or pipeline generation days. One of our SDR teams books 75% of their monthly meeting quota in a single day, just using the tactics that I'm about to share. So it's obviously unique to Datadog, like Eric said. I don't know that you're going to be able to take all of it, but hopefully you can pull a couple of nuggets out to improve your SDR relationships, your AE relationships, what have you. All right. So this is how it actually works in practice, right? We work with our RevOps team and StratOps teams to build out our full ICP, and this obviously changes and updates at least quarterly in terms of new products coming out, changes in the market, that type of stuff. And then we look for some signals, we look for some engagement, we look for some ICP analysis and rep buy-in for a number of accounts to go after. Usually that number is about 500. And then from there, we start to bake in a bunch of data that helps us create an outbound machine and an inbound machine. And I'll talk about kind of both sides of that coin there. But we prioritize in those accounts that we've decided are a good fit, the individuals that we think are most likely to book a meeting with reps. And those are the ones that we target both with outbound and inbound tactics. All right. First of all, how do we actually build this list? Okay. This is what we call the system. And this is all of our data sources that we use and crunch together to make a very long list of individuals that we think are going to be really good targets for us. We focus on first-party data first, of course. We have the blessing of a really good data engineering team and some really good Snowflake data and telemetry data out of our application that helps us do that. But if you don't have that, certainly there's enough out there in terms of third-party and second-party data and signals that you can use to, kind of drive your own program. We use a couple of different tools here that I'll just call out really briefly. Demandbase is still in the stack. I do think that orchestration of some variety is critical for ABM, and I'm sure there's some folks out there who are looking at new tools. I'm sure there are new tools that are going to be fun, but I do think somewhere, some way, you need orchestration to get your audiences together, to ingest the Salesforce data, what have you. We also use news alerts from AI and from ZoomInfo to try and drive relevance for our PG and for our ads from the accounts. We use Sumble, which is, if you don't know, I'm a huge fan of Sumble. It's a job post analysis tool that basically reverse engineers job posts and tries to figure out what their tech stack is and what signals we can pull out of job postings. We use that to look for job changers, hiring managers, digital projects that are coming up. We use Vector for contact-based intent and then also actual execution of the ads, and same thing with user-led. They produce our microsites, but we use that to kind of drive back into intent. And then lastly, Common Room helps us with some job changer and other bespoke kind of first-party signals that I can certainly talk at length about if you have more questions there. So this is kind of the stack, right? But a lot of times I see people stop here. It's like, okay, here's the stack, and then go figure out what to do with it, right? That's kind of what I want to spend most of today on, is like, regardless of what your tech stack is, you can probably do some elements of this, of the actual execution work, right? And that is, how do we actually make this happen, okay? So I love to call this surround sound ABM. I think I've stolen that from someone, I don't know who, but ultimately we're talking about both the inbound approach, which is all advertising, direct mail, events, every normal marketing channel, and then the outbound approach, which is reps and SDRs calling and emailing and in-mailing into accounts, right? And trying to break in directly as opposed to waiting for that warm inbound to come in. I think the answer for ABM is you have to do both. You have to optimize and help your sales teams and SDR teams to focus on outbound, but also you must do inbound to I don't want to say warm up the accounts, because I really don't think that that's the right way of doing it, but you should be trying to get folks that would not respond to outbound for whatever reason. The data quality is not great in the data tools, or they just don't really read their email that well. Try and get them on the hook through different channels. And for me, LinkedIn is great, but I don't sell to GTM. Datadog sells to engineers. Engineers do not spend their entire life on LinkedIn like those of us in marketing and sales. So, we have to go outside of those channels to find, these folks that are in my ICP where they're living. And ultimately that means Facebook, Google, and Reddit need to be a core component of how we do our ad strategy. And frankly, that's not possible without a tool like Vector that enables you to go and focus these campaigns in those B2C channels with lower CPMs, with different audience overlap compared to LinkedIn. So I'm a huge fan of Vector, and I really don't. That is one part of this that would break without a tool, I think, is the advertising part. So let's dig into what each of these components looks like. So SDR outbound, how do you actually improve it? The reality is most SDRs are somewhere between 22 and 27. They don't have a ton of business experience. They don't have a ton of value selling experience. How can we start to enable them with the ability to personalize their outbound in a way that a 35-year-old AE would do? The answer is AI plus data. Okay. So what we've built is, and you can see this is literally the Google sheet. So for anyone telling you, oh yeah, I can't do this until I get $1 million tool, here's the Google sheet we use, right? We provide each rep with 15 of their folks that are most likely to book a meeting based on all of our signals from the system. And then we created a custom gem inside of Gemini that can overlay in this sheet and allow them to write emails directly based on the knowledge we have of the account, meetings we've scraped in the past, their usage data if they're already a customer in our application, and then also all of the relevance that we know about these different types of signals. So for instance, I've got two here. One is someone who showed search intent at the contact level. Another one is a new VP hire at this account that we were covering recently. There's some notes at the top about kind of news updates and other things that have happened that are baked into the outbound, but just to update the reps and the SDRs about the account. And then ultimately their goal is start a cadence using that button there, and that opens the custom gem inside of Gemini. And then they can easily create a draft in their Gmail and send it out. So in order to speed up their time, both their speed to lead on the marketing leads and in their outbound performance, ultimately what you need to do is enable them with this account intelligence at whatever capacity you can and allow them to speed that up into actual email or actual in-mail copy or actual phone script copy, as we've done here. In terms of the inbound side, right? Again, like I said, Vector produces the ability for us to go target folks that are in the ICP on Facebook, on Google, on Reddit, all of which we see tremendous performance from. We even before Vector came in, I was a huge proponent of Meta, specifically Instagram, but also Facebook for B2B advertising. I really do think that the CPMs, and even with the kind of crappy targeting that's available, you can make this work. And that is one challenge I would have to you guys is to try and figure out, can we make Facebook and Meta, if you're not already using it, work for B2B today? Because I think it's possible. We also do ABM ads that are personalized at the account level to directing towards our landing pages that are customized, every single one, again, mostly using AI, to kind of encourage folks who are on LinkedIn to engage with us there as well. And you can see a couple of examples that we use. I think, frankly, one person that I follow a lot is Isaac Ware of User Gems. If you need advertising strategies, a great guy to learn from. I've taken a lot of tips from him. But ultimately, our goal always, you can see in the buttons in there, is request a demo. We are pushing towards meetings with almost all of our advertising. We do not do a ton of brand awareness. I think you can do both at the same time. I think the impressions that you're going to deliver from ads that are pushing towards demos or pushing towards gated content is good enough to drive the brand awareness when we've done tests comparing it to ads that are really more for pure awareness plays. One of the other things that actually was not even in the original newsletter that I did with Eric, but I love is direct mail. And really we've created this tier strategy for direct mail here. One is, volume-based direct mail to try and get users and what we call HOKs or hands-on keyboards into meetings with sales to help to, develop and refine the hypothesis that a seller has for an account through Sendoso and just kind of blasting out meetings for gift cards for demos. But we also have sort of a top tier strategy for our VPs, C-suite, et cetera, which we use a company called Wildcard Intros, who I'm a really big fan of. If you have some time to talk to Brennan, I'd recommend it. But they deliver custom bespoke gifts for folks that will never respond to a Facebook ad or will never respond to a cold outbound from an SDR, right? Because they just simply get bombarded. They're too busy every single day. How do we get them on the phone? Ultimately, it's breaking them out of that noise machine and finding some way of really connecting with them through direct mail. I think this is a huge play that, regardless of whether or not you do it in-house or look to a service provider, you can do this today and you can do it relatively inexpensively, and it will help break that mold that we fall into with so many of our channels. All of that said, let's talk about signals, right? Because signals, I think, are what drives a lot of this. It's the unspoken thing of how the system was built, how all of these plays are actually being targeted, right? And what the content is that we're targeting these folks with once we get, the right accounts in place and the right contact. So, somebody I love is Brennan Short, who runs the Signal newsletter. If you haven't seen that, please check it out, because Brennan is a tremendous thinker in GTM, more on the sales side, but these days I think it's really all combining into one. But Brennan's point is, like, imagine going beneath your ICP and just looking at the signal, the folks that are showing you signals at any one point in time. And that's really the core thesis of how I built the system and what I think about most likely to book a meeting is all about. And ultimately, I think, you know, I don't want to overemphasize this because you'll hear a lot on LinkedIn or whatever that signals are commoditized. You can't, you know, you need signal alpha. I do think that's true. But I recently had a new joiner on my team and I asked her, send me every single prospecting email that you get that mentions that you just got a new job. She got 3 in 3 months. Okay. At a massive company, 10,000 people, 4 point whatever billion dollars in revenue this year. This is not a small account that I work for. And we got 3 emails for a new joiner that looks like a very senior member of the ABM team. I think you can get away with a lot of commoditized signals. I think the advanced nature of the folks on LinkedIn are not representative of the market. I think you should still focus on job changer signals, on these types of things, but you do need some alpha too. And ultimately, what that looks like is something that is specific to the product that you sell, the buyer that you are going after, that only you can really create a play for. And so, you know, there's a couple of examples here. I'll go through mine that I really like, and that is outages, right? Outages are one of the most important signals, reasons why someone would start to consider an observability solution. So we scrape Reddit, we scrape Down Detector, isitdown.com, for also updog.ai, which we've built in-house to monitor overall services, to see, is there any performance degradation? Is there any outages that are happening in an account? And ultimately, those things are not, you don't want to go ambulance chasing with this, right? You know, it's a little bit like a security breach. You don't want to just hammer the account the day they're having an outage. But 2 weeks later, after the postmortem, after they've been hammered by leadership, probably a good time to reach out, right? So that's the type of thing that ultimately I think is really unique to us, and you would be very irrelevant. No tool is going to help you do that, but with the power of AI, I think you can go find those signals that are unique and then create custom plays that only you can attack. There's a couple other examples there that I won't go through, but it would encourage you guys to think about signal alpha and Brennan's whole pitch after this. So, okay, what's the upshot of this, right? Optimize for meetings, not warm accounts. I think that's the way of getting deals done. Focus on individual people's rather than trying to just focus on the account always, always, always. Map the signals that actually matter, right? And I would say track whatever you can, because I do think more is better here. And then lastly, like, find whatever your unique signal is to power all of the machine, the inbound system, the outbound system, et cetera, and use that to surround sound your best contacts that are in your cohort. That's me. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have more questions, I'm happy to take those. I'm doing a Q&A with Eric on Demand Collective. So please feel free to reach out there or to me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, guys.
Amazing. Okay, just for Holden, can you go back to the takeaway slides real quick?
Ooh, sorry, hold on. I got to reshare.
Although, guys, we're all marketers here. Obviously, this is this is recorded and you're getting the slides. I've gotten a couple of questions, which was surprising to me. You're getting all the resources after. Don't worry. You can be present. All right, let's hear in the chat. What did we give Kevin a rating? 1 out of 10. It was a 10 for me. Oh, let's go. A bunch of 10s, even a 12.
12. Wow. I don't think I deserve 12.
I'm hoping it's a typo from Daniela and it wasn't a 1 out of 10. But everyone else gave you 10s or 20s. Amazing stuff. Yeah, the biggest takeaways for me were she's rounding down. That's funny. She meant 11. All right, very good, very good. Yeah, the biggest takeaway for me is the like internal value of focusing on meetings, which you talked about when we did the newsletter, but a little less here, which is like, you come in and you're the ABM guy. You can't just give the sales team warm accounts or they're gonna not be aligned with any of the work that you're doing, and you need them to be aligned for ABM to actually work. So like the way to get on their good side is to give them results immediately, and results that they care about is like, I booked more meetings. Even if they're like, you would say bad meeting is better than good account that they don't book.
Kind of like pizza. There's no such thing as a bad pizza, no such thing as a bad meeting.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the biggest takeaway for me, is like, if you're standing up ABM, like, just get the results in quick, then you can get some buy-in, and then you can do more of the longer term stuff. Damn, Alexa, what's your monthly ad budget? Yeah, and what's your social security number? I would say you're a very sophisticated machine, but hopefully, like I said, a couple golden nuggets you guys can take away. 2 more minutes. Any question for Kevin? Oh, we had some in the Q&A, actually. Okay, let me pick my favorite. Oh, this is good. Maybe touch on your cadence, Kevin. So it's like uh you build these most likely to book a meeting lists weekly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We update things on Tuesdays. That seems to be the best day to do it. But yeah, we drag new data in and try and refresh them every Tuesday if the reps actually actioned all 15. If not, we recycle.
Oh, nice. Okay. And then optimize for meetings, book meetings through obviously targeting the right contacts,
Yep.
right accounts, but like oftentimes it's similar to the old school like MQL model. It's like
True.
give them something valuable, download a cheat
Definitely
sheet,
true.
download a guide, etc. at the contact level, right?
Yep.
Which that's a
Yep.
unique, that's a good unique thing. What else we got? Do you run any native? Yeah, I think you touched on this. Let's see. Oh my God. All right, guys. There's lots of questions. I appreciate it. We're almost at time. Kevin will be hosting a private Q&A in Demand Collective, and we can get into more questions there. But also feel free. I'll keep track of these, and I'll try to reach back out with some answers. And let me see if we got one. Okay, that's it. Kevin, thank you so much. I agree with everyone in the chat who said this was more than a 10 out of 10. I'll just say that. So thanks so much. I really appreciate all your support for Demand Collective and you being so open with sharing such innovative strategies. So
Absolutely.
thanks so much. I guess real quick, everyone on this call, any way they can be helpful to you? Anything you want to plug?
No. I work for a living. I
Go.
don't have a podcast, so this is it, man.
You don't no courses, no podcasts. Nope. Let's go. Well, thanks so much for helping. You're the man. All right. So next up, we have a session that I'm very excited for. Put in the chat if you are currently or have been in the past the demand gen person, and then you get ABM plopped on your plate, and your boss or someone is like, "Yo, it's time to stand up ABM."
Are we on time now? Great.
Yep. And then I'm going to add Eric up here. Yeah, everyone. Okay, amazing. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We have some of the smartest ABM practitioners talking about kind of crawl, walk around, how to stand up ABM. Let me add Eric on stage as a panelist.
And Lisa too.
And Lisa. It's working. Wonderful. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. We got people from Glean, Pave, Intelepeer. This is an awesome roundtable. Mick, the stage is yours. Let's go.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Hi, everybody. Quickly, my name is Mikhail. I go by Mick. I'm one of the founders of Seam AI. We're building the next 6 cents for an AI ABM platform that helps you find your best accounts, find which ones are in market, and then orchestrate campaigns across sales and marketing channels. That's all you're going to hear about Seam. I am just asking questions today. Our great speakers are going to be doing most of the talking. So I will do a quick round of intros, and then we can kick this thing off. I know we don't have a ton of time. So first, we have Lisa Hathaway. Lisa is the VP of Growth Marketing at Intelepeer, which is an AI health tech company where she leads the company's full growth engine across demand gen, ABM, digital, and field marketing. And before Intelepeer, Lisa spent 15 years scaling very recognizable hypergrowth software companies like BrightEdge, Telerik, Domino Data Lab, Vector AI, a 1.2 billion cybersecurity unicorn, and Neo4j, where she took the company from 20 million to over 120 million in revenue. So we're very, very lucky to have Lisa. Then we have Asia Vizcocho. She's the ABM manager at Glean. She owns the company's global account-based marketing strategy and has built an AI-first ABM engine that helps sales teams open and accelerate opportunities with some of the world's biggest enterprise brands. Before Glean, Asia held ABM and field marketing roles at Snowflake and Product Board, where she built full funnel ABM programs and have sourced new pipeline, influenced tens of millions in revenue, and become the blueprint for how sales and marketing can truly co-own growth. At Product Board, her post-event strategy alone converted 85% of attendees into meetings and generated about $1 million in influence pipeline. So hello, Asia. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Eric McCall. He's a B2B demand generation advisor with 15 plus years of experience scaling marketing teams at companies like Atlassian and Lyft. At Atlassian, he led demand generation for the enterprise, scaling the team from 3 to 30. Today, he works with high growth SaaS companies like Pave to build data-driven marketing engines and next-gen ABM programs. So we have a pretty killer group. I think to kick things off, what is ABM? How do you define it? I think this is one of those nebulous words. And so I want to hear how you think about it and how you define it. Who wants to kick us off?
I could take a stab
Take
at
a
it if
swing.
everyone's okay. So ABM is a really loose term. We all know it. Everyone knows it. Sales already has an assumption of what it is. So it's really difficult for demand gen leaders to come in and really say, hey, we're doing ABM. But they're saying we tried it before, it fails. So in a couple of different organizations, I renamed it and I called it account-based targeting because that's exactly what it is. Like Seinfeld, why don't you just tell me the name of the movie? We're going to tell you what we're doing, which is targeting. We're going to be targeting. And this is the bridge between sales and marketing. This is how we come together as a team. It's the only way it works. So I'll pass it over to my colleagues that are on the panel.
I love that. I think if we just called it ABT, it would solve a whole lot of problems.
Yeah,
Eric or Asia or Eric, who wants to go?
I can jump in real quick. I wanted to touch on that, especially since we don't actually at Glean too. We don't call it ABM anymore. It's too loose of a term. We actually call it ABE, and that's like account-based everything. Usually when you use a term like ABM, some people just think like very targeted, expensive campaigns. That's kind of like the way people look at it now. And so with ABE, we really paint it as a picture of like this is an operating system of how our marketing, SDRs, AEs, partners, and leaders really go to market together on those same accounts. The way I really showcase this to our sales team is I have them picture three bodies of water. It's kind of funny, but this is how it gets in their heads. But ocean, lake, puddle. Easy way to define it. Ocean's everyone you can sell to. Your lake is your ICP, and your puddle is the accounts where like ABM really lives. It's where your specific buying groups are, where your specific accounts are. And the way that I really describe it is what are those puddles that we're willing to obsess over to make sure all those touch points really create that pipeline and revenue that we're looking for. And that's what really gets into the heads of our salespeople.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I love those metaphors. I would say that, yeah, just getting away from that, it's just a marketing only channel. I don't know. It's like probably the worst branding of this like motion that we've ever had. But it's really truly, I think like two things. One is it's a organizational shift. So it's like the change of the mindset of sales and marketing, where it's not like this is a marketing channel that we're investing in. This is truly a different way of how we measure our funnel, how we measure our progression, how we measure our tactics. So I think that is exactly what we want to get across. And that's kind of what we're going to dive into today about how to actually like roll that out. But I agree with other ones.
Awesome. Okay, so something we hear on so many calls is we are setting up ABM for the first time and we don't know where to start. So if you're tasked with executing ABM for the first time at your company, where do you start? What does the crawl look like before you can walk or run?
Yeah, I can jump into this one.
Whoever wants
I
to
can
go.
jump in.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I would say if I was asked to start ABM from scratch and I needed to crawl, first thing to do is I always start with find the data, set the data. That's like my mantra of like making sure that you have a data set and you're really ready to go in that sense. If you don't have data, I would say look for it. There's data everywhere. There's data in your CRM, your product, your events. You just need to pull it together from an account level so that you're not guessing going into starting ABM. When you're guessing, your campaigns are going to start to go everywhere. You're going to get off track. You need to make sure that you have one definition of success going into it. So the questions I would be asking before I even start anything is, where does the revenue actually come from? Where are my ops stuck? Which of my ICP segments are maybe even overperforming, underperforming? Those are the questions that I would be asking. So it gives me a short list of places to start. After that, I believe in what I call insane alignment. You need insane alignment with sales. And so do a listening tour with your AEs, with your RVPs, with your SDRs, figure out what those like 5 to 10 accounts that are like painfully close to closing or they're painfully ignored. Get two sides of the coin so that you can really make sure that you have this tight shared list and you're walking in lockstep with them. Once you have that, you can start a campaign with that data set, those coordinated tactics, that one definition of success. And then from there, once you have that going, then you have the right to kind of start talking about walking and running. So that's kind of where I would start.
Yeah, I think that's really great points on that. And if I can, I love your puddle your lake, I love that analogy. It's the fish finder, right? We're cheating. It's the fish finder.
Fish finder.
So on that, I'm a data freak. When I started at Neo4j, I had the executive team saying, oh, we should be marketing to developers, right? Or we should be going over here and let's get the decision makers. And I was like, okay, time out, everybody. We really need to understand what our ICP is. Let's dive into the data. We had Marketo there, and I used the opportunity organizer and analyzer. So what did I do is I was able to find out from that tool what was the origin of my top deals and what was the anatomy of those deals. And then I could build a blueprint to say, okay, we also like the word lookalikes. If it looks like that, then that's where my bullseye is going to be, right? So you're taking it from, here's the ether. We can go after everything, but let's look at what the data is going to say. Now you're saying, well, that's great if you had all that data to analyze. What if I don't have data? For all those startups up there, you really got to just get out there and, to your point, test, fail fast, and learn and get the data, right? You need to have data to try and nail this. And remember, the companies are always evolving. So your data is always revolving. So this is always changing, always.
Mm-hmm. And you never have as much data as you wish you had, right?
Oh,
so it's like, it's
always.
important to be.
Oh my gosh.
Nice. Yeah.
Eric, what do you think?
I mean, I just on all of those, but I would say other things to just take a step back and also just say, why do we need ABM? Why does this motion even make sense for us at this stage? Or what is the current challenges that we're having? Like what I found at Atlassian and at Pave is when you realize like, you have a large average deal size, it's a long sales cycle, there's multiple people involved in that sale. Perfect combination for account-based targeting because you're going after building this persona and actually like carrying them through this long sales cycle, and it's worth it for you to actually invest more money into that small puddle of accounts. Whereas if you have a smaller deal size or a higher velocity sale, you might not actually need to invest in that right now. Like maybe it is a motion of scaling. Yes, you want data. Yes, you want targeting improvements, but to actually carry this this whole initiative on board, you need to make sure there's enough problems and there's enough value there to invest in it.
Great. How do you find your A accounts? You talked a little bit about this, Lisa. Is there anyone want to add? Because I agree with that. It's like if you don't get that right, or at least you're not moving in the right direction, nothing else below it matters. So any other advice beyond just like iterating, hypothesis, scientific method, or should we move on?
Pressure test it with sales, right? Create your scenarios and say, is this an A account or is this a B account or is this a C account? I'm actually just about to enter into a meeting after this with product marketing and a few of our top AEs to pressure test what we're building in Seam.
Mm-hmm.
And then you own the success together. And if it doesn't work, you own it together to fix it.
Mm-hmm. You could have the right fit score, but if sales doesn't trust it and they don't act on it, nothing matters. So you do need that alignment, I think. Okay, moving on. Where ABM breaks down, because this is something we hear all the time too, where it's like our company tried ABM in the past and it didn't work, and so there's hurdles internally to get buy-in again. What are the most common reasons that ABM programs stall or get abandoned? Where do they break? I think everyone has good thoughts here. So Eric, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I would say that usually what happens, the most common reason why things break would be one, we talked a lot about the sales and alignment and the buy-in. So you don't have enough actionable plays off of the data. So sometimes you actually get so excited about just the data and the insights of it that maybe marketing or ops is owning that and you're pulling all this cool data and you're seeing all these journeys, but you haven't taken that leap to actually take action with it and actually build in some playbooks or motions. And so sometimes I've seen that fail where one side of the equation is very excited about all of the possibilities, but they haven't really set the groundwork of, well, what are we going to do once we have this and what are we actually going to run? So that's important. And I think secondly is just getting that revenue leadership buy-in, CEO buy-in, realizing that there's expectation setting of how long this is going to take before you can actually measure the results of it. I would say minimum 6 months, ideally a year for this pilot program. Have a really clear hypothesis of what success looks like, have a holdout group, run with a small sales team and have one or two champions that are really like advocates for you. Those are all things that really helped when I was rolling this out at at Atlassian and Pave.
Cool. Asia, you want to go next? If there's
Yeah,
anything
happy
you want to
to.
add?
Yeah, happy to. I think one thing that I've learned, especially when trying to get ABM programs turned on, is if you can turn off your ABM program without anyone noticing, I would just classify that as a expensive campaign. That's how I would look at it. Because truly, like I said, it's we don't treat ABM as a marketing campaign. It's truly an operating system that is really for that marketing and sales partnership. And so at Glean, what we did before we even stood anything up, I would even say that ABM was in stealth mode. So ABM was in stealth mode for a couple months where we were truly building on the inside, making sure that the agents that we were building around it, because again, we are AI first ABM. And so making sure that what we were building, our agents are going to make our sales team happy. We wanted to make sure that those places that we usually see break isn't going to be a problem later in the future. So usually the three places that I see it is we're working off either different account lists, our puddles are different. So I want to make sure that me and those sales teams are fully aligned. There's a what I like to call no, then what, similar to what you were talking about, Eric, of like, cool, we have the signals, we have all this great gold that we have gathered, but what do we do with it? There's no clear plays, there's no clear owners that we should go after. And then lastly is getting out of the weeds. I feel like sometimes we get in the weeds when it comes to sales. We are talking about MQLs and clicks and all of these different things. They don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is how are you getting them meetings? How are you progressing stages? How are you making them money? That's truly what I believe sales wants to see. So you need to make sure that before going into this, you're telling the right story and you have that story nailed down across all of your sales regions. So those are kind of places that I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm. Great. Lisa, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I agree with that. Know your internal customer. It's sales. Know what
Cool.
they want. More than likely, you're walking into an org and they already tried it. And with sales, they try it once, it doesn't work. They don't want to try it again. So talk to them. Why did it fail? What can I do differently? Bring your playbook. You're absolutely right. Bring your playbook and explain how you're going to do it differently. And then build it with them. But you gotta know what
When
sales.
What to
sale,
get out? Yeah, what you got to sell them, right?
You gotta sell them. If they're
Yeah.
not in it with you, this thing fails. And to your point, you're absolutely right. If you could turn it off, I'd love that. If you could turn it off and no one notices, shame on us as demand gen leaders.
Yeah.
Then
when
fix.
sales is coming, yeah, when sales is coming to you and asking for more ABM resources or more support, you know
Mhm.
you're doing something right, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where you want to be.
And here's a
Yeah.
tip. I put everything in Salesforce. So I put it in their daily dashboards. I push all the data to them. So we have their target accounts. And every day when they go to their daily dashboard, they could see what the progression, the engagement is with their target account. So it's in their face and they can use it without you even being in the room. So that's another
Yeah.
tip.
Yeah. I think to summarize all that, there's a lot of work before you run a campaign, right? It's getting alignment on the accounts, making sure it's very clear what sales is going to get out of it, and then making it really easy. We like to say typically in ABM or traditionally the distance between insight and action is about a mile wide. So how do you make that very, very easy for them to act on, and that the ones they act on are actually ready for sales? That's actually a good transition. There's a lot of kind of words being thrown around right now: signals, intent, engagement. It's like the timing part, right? Message, right time. How do you guys think about that? How do you know where an account is in your funnel? What signals are you using? Intent, again, these words are meaningless, but what kinds of things are you looking for to understand? All right, what channel am I using? What kind of messaging am I using? Like, how do you think about that? So I think there's a lot of folks are like, oh, you see a signal and you fire an email and ask for a meeting, right? And I don't think that's what ABM is. Does anyone have thoughts about that?
I mean, I think the way I think about it is like depth, breadth, and intent signals. So basically, intent is either first party, second party, third party. Ideally, we want to track visits to our site or pricing pages or form fill outs or webinar signups or events. Those are all first party. Third party would be the Bombora searching intent, things like that. I don't really put too much weight in some of the third party intent signals. I think it's like an additional nod if it's an addition to something else. But you also have to realize that not everything is going to be tracked, and it's also impossible to know what back channel conversations accounts are having about your brand or about your product. So to the best that we can do, we believe that accounts that are more warm, showing intent to the site, engaging with content, will have a higher likelihood chance of converting if they're a good fit and having meetings. And so it's a pretty simple hypothesis, but if we work together and we can create that engagement and create that warming up, and we can actually prove that these accounts are going to convert a lot higher than these accounts that are cold, then that's what we're working with. And when we're just fine tuning that scoring and that modeling with our sales team.
Nice.
I also think it's all about revenue, and I think someone else on this panel agrees with me. And I think you do too, Eric. It really is. That's again, knowing your internal customer sales. What do they care about? Putting money in their pockets. How do they put money in their pockets? When they close deals, which equals
Mhm.
revenue. So the ultimate, if you guys are not aligned on revenue for building the success of your campaigns, it's going to fall flat throughout the whole entire organization. It's a strategy, right? This is a strategy that we're building together to actually help build our companies and build that revenue and fast. And
Yeah.
MQLs, we need to know for pipeline health.
Yeah.
That's demand
Yeah, I
gen.
think to that point, it's like, how do we know it's working? And I know these things can take time. And I think Asia, you mentioned something around, it's like, you can't have 100 things you're watching to determine success, right? It's like, what are we looking for to determine if this is working or not? But for a long deal cycle, you might run a campaign or two and you might not get revenue yet. So how do you measure ABM? How do you guys think about that? What is a good success metric? And are there any that you've learned to ignore?
I think, Lisa, you said it. I think I 100% agree with you. It's revenue. Honestly, that is how you measure a good ABM campaign. If you are moving deals through this pipeline. And so I think at Snowflake, one of the main things that you're looking at is like, can I move a deal 4x times faster than an account that's not in ABM? That is a measurement that I want to get to. And so you have to find your baseline. I think again, going back to always having the right data is important. Have a baseline. Don't start ABM without it. Make sure that you have that baseline so that you can prove out, like, hey, at the end of the day, this account moved again 4x times faster because it was in an ABM program. And so that's truly what I believe in, is just look at the revenue, look at how it's moving, look how it's progressing, as well as the meetings. How many meetings are you getting out of it? Once it started in ABM, how many meetings did it start getting outside of that? And so really honing in on those baselines so that you can start to make those differences of what is a non-ABM account and what is an ABM account.
Nice.
Yeah, you need that benchmark. You're absolutely spot on. If you don't have a benchmark to know how all your other programs are performing, you have nothing to measure it against to show success. Spot on.
Yeah, we did a small pilot group, again, measuring the data, having a baseline. We had a small pilot group of accounts with only 2 sellers. They got 100% of our support, our focus, holdout groups, so nobody else touched those accounts. 6 months later, we could prove out everything that this team is saying, like the acceleration, both the pipeline creation, meetings booked. Maybe you have some that close, but like you said, if it's a 6 to 12 month sales cycle, maybe you're not getting a ton of revenue yet. But it's so clear that this is an investment that then you have champions and other salespeople are saying, wait, can I get that program supported too? And then you ask for more budget, things like that.
100%.
Okay, so I think we have time for 2 questions if we're quick. So first, I think that ABM campaigns can come in a couple different flavors or a few flavors. Like there's one-to-one, there's one-to-few, there's one-to-many. I call that kind of your air cover, always on. How do you decide which motion to run? How do you think about that in general? How do you split up accounts that way? Do you run all 3? Do you start with one? Any thoughts?
I could start it, but I feel like I'm
Yeah,
talking
Lisa,
too
take it.
much. I'm
No, no, hey.
Just dive
Yeah.
in and cut me off if you want to add, please.
Yeah.
All the counts need all the motions, but what you need to really understand is where are they in the journey to know which one to use. Right. So it's really, again, your sales internal customer, know your actual external customer and what signals they're giving you. If they're looking for a demo, like we do a weekly live demo at Intelepeer yesterday. We did it. It's made for like 5 people at a time. Open conversation like this. Eric loved this format, by the way. And immediately after, the person that's hosting on the demand gen team, they asked for a custom demo. It's a huge enterprise deal for us. So again, knowing where your customer is in the journey is super important. So then you know which one of these tactics to launch. What do you guys think?
Anything to add?
I would say just making sure that you have enough like budget and campaign air coverage for the size of your audience and the size of your accounts. And so for sales, if they're going after and actively wanting to prospect into these accounts, you know that you have air coverage turned on for those accounts across like CTV ads and LinkedIn ads and events, and then you're helping them craft specific programs or specific call to actions for those personas. So maybe for the champion, you want to get them on board and get them really excited because they're actually a little easier to win over with your products, whereas the VPs or the CFOs, there's not really it's hard to kind of get into that organization right from the beginning. And so just helping like sales think about those different call to actions, and then just again making sure you have actually enough budget and enough visibility for these accounts. Otherwise, you're just sort of spreading yourself too thin, and it's not actually going to have any impact in this pilot if you're running a pilot.
There's so many good questions in the chat, but I can't talk too much. No one wants to hear from me anyway. Okay, so to close, where do we think ABM is going to be in the next 2 to 3 years? Is the playbook changing? Let's see who had a good one. Lisa, you want to take it again?
Yeah, I'll start, but budget questions are a lot throughout the first conversation when Kevin was chatting, and now I see it popping up here. Start small. That's the smartest thing to do is start small with your budgets, test the hell out of it, and then you have your business case to go to your executive team and say, look what we were able to accomplish, going back to having benchmarks, right? Have your benchmark say, this is what I'm showing so far with this amount of budget. Give me more, and I'm going to forecast this, and you'll get more budget. So start small. It's okay to start small. But is it evolving? Yeah. AI is evolving everything daily. I'm so addicted to Claude, it's not even funny. I remember when TikTok came out. Okay, I'm aging myself, and I couldn't put that thing down. That's how Claude is for me right now. So if you are not using AI daily, we are in Intelepeer through and through. If you're not using it, you're losing it. Everything's going to pass you by. And with Seam AI, you're going to get pipeline and revenue at the speed of which AI is developing.
Great.
That's
a little commercial.
There's an ad.
Little commercial. Little drop there.
I didn't tell her to say that. Anything?
No.
Yeah. Anyone want to add, Asia, like how you guys are thinking about it over at Glean?
Yeah, no, I am 100% with you, Lisa. AI, honestly, we are, I mean, I'm at an AI company, so I have to preach it, but honestly, like we are AI first ABM, and to your point, like ABM is a manual thing. You are constantly in meetings, you're constantly coming up with campaigns, you're launching different things. And so with AI, you can take that, what is it, like couple of weeks, sometimes you're back and forth with the AE trying to figure out what that campaign looks like. That's a matter of minutes now because of the way that you're able to really use the AI to figure out what is our campaign messaging, what is our strategy, what should that look like, and really just hone in on the right messaging. And so I think that's the one main thing is that it's personalization is a big thing right now, and it's rising. But what's going to happen is we're not going to solve it by just doing more and more and more as ourselves. We need to bring in AI to kind of help with that. Let it handle that slow work because the playbook's changing, but what we don't want is to get left behind in that. So make sure that you're using it so that you're focusing that, like, let it do that 80% so that 20% is you actually going in and learning how to move those executive conversations.
I would say like two.
Sorry,
Well, I'd say those last two things I would say in the next couple of years. One, I think in-person events are on the rise and will probably continue to be invested in more. I think it's a great tactic, especially coming out of this digital COVID era into this event space. And then secondly, I think that we're going to get to this point where like just the speed that you were mentioning is just going to be so exponential to market where you could probably have one-click ABM campaigns where like literally everything will be built instantly for that sales rep, like landing pages, like personalized content, personalized journeys that they'll be entered in. Like I think that that's right around the corner and will basically be a lot faster for us to execute.
My colleague Selena's on the phone. She told me today we're going to start training Claude to be our agents.
There you go. We have some customers that use Claude. We like feed the context into the CRM. It's all the different touch points. Claude looks at it, evaluates it kind of holistically. So I think it's like where the data work is a great application of AI. It's like you have data all over the place. How do we get it together? And then let AI do its thing. Okay. I know we're almost at time, Eric, and I don't want to stress you out. So we can wrap there.
Never stress me out. You guys, this is amazing. I want two things. First of all, give this session a rating in the chat, 1 out of 10. I want to see what everyone thought. I thought it was great. So many tactical takeaways, especially around the like internal stuff that you don't usually hear about, like how do I actually do this in-house. Let's go 100 from JD, who is currently employed by Mick, so maybe slightly biased. A bunch of 10s.
Totally. You had to.
Great stuff. Okay, real quick question. This came from Connor, and a couple people tagged on. Like getting all these signals into one place for sales to see what's the real for you guys that have tried multiple ways to do this. There's like, how do you actually get them all in one place? There's also like, how do you get sales bought in on signals and trusting signals? Any thoughts there from
Type it into Salesforce. It's their daily tool. It's the only tool they work out of. You have to pipe the data into Salesforce so they see it in their daily dashboards. It's in their face. It's in their executive's face. They can't walk away from it. It's right there. Don't have them log into another tool. They never will. What do you guys think?
I mean, from an aggregator perspective, I mean, Seam makes it easy because it's like bringing it all into one place. I think there's other tools. You could probably Frankenstein some certain signals as well if you want to build it yourself, but there's also tools out there that can just aggregate it all in one. But then, yeah, what matters is where it lives. Like, we don't want to silo that data. So I agree with you, just getting it to wherever your salespeople work and make it easy.
And then there's the like getting them bought in on the signals, right? So you have to like show these are the signals, maybe some back testing to be like, this is why we chose these signals and why you should care about them. Which is where a tool like Seam helps. You can do that with anything.
Build those scenarios with them. Is this an A?
Yeah, be like, what signals do you guys, as the really smart AE, see in your best accounts?
One last thing on that too.
Yep.
100% agree. It should live in Salesforce. It's or whatever CRM that you do use. But one thing that has really helped at Glean too is have them subscribe to those reports that you're making. There's a subscription button. You can make sure it gets in their inbox every morning, every week, whenever that looks like. That is what's really going to hone in that, hey, these are important for me to look at. I need to look at these signals, whatever it may be. That's what's really helped. Now I'm getting the messages of like, Asia, what does this mean? What can I do with this? That type of thing. That's what you need to do is make sure, one, they're looking at it. It's in one place, but make sure, one, they're looking at it. You want to make sure that they're actually utilizing what you're building.
100%. Can we ask them to link in with us and look us up? Would love to help people.
Oh, yes. Drop your LinkedIn profiles in the chat, or I'll add them. Okay, thank you guys so much. We're at time.
Thank you so much for having us.
An amazing session.
And thank you to my colleagues on the panel.
What's that?
Thank you to my colleagues on the panel. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
All right,
Mitch.
the amazing sessions like this. You got to learn from Glean, one of the fastest companies to go from 1 to 100 million in ARR. Eric and Cole stood up the ABM program at Atlassian. We get these people for free. The only reason we get them for free is because of amazing sponsors like Seam. So I'm going to relaunch this poll. If you want to get intro to them one-on-one and you're interested, go ahead and fill it out. And 2 minutes late. I'm sorry, Kelly, but I will bring Kelly on stage for our next session, which is one of the sessions I am most excited for, which is 2 unhinged growth experiments driving meetings. In his first 4 weeks in a job, Kelly has been a longtime Demand Collective member, one of the sharpest DG practitioners I know. So very, very, very excited. I'm going to bring you up on stage now.
Okay, we'll drop.
You guys can stay on. I'll add you as attendees. Here we go. If you want to stay on, let's see. Change role to attendee. What's up, Kelly?
What is up, everybody? My name is Kelly. I am Senior Demand Gen Leader at Vector. And side note, I've been in Demand Collective for a few years. And it's a good time. You guys should join if you haven't already. I would say like my favorite thing is the type of conversations you're having today happens all the time. A lot of moments, especially my last job. I got to get on calls with people like Eric actually and just pick his brain about what I should do. It's pretty quick, pretty great.
Yeah, it was like the best part is all the smart people you got to learn from, just like the comments you have today with people like me.
Exactly.
All right, take it away.
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you guys this. I'm about 8 weeks into my new role. So I told Eric to put on some extremely mature organizations right in front of me because we're going to go through some early growth or early stage startup scrappy experimentation with Vector. So I've been at Vector for about 8 weeks. It's been really fun. I'm going to walk you through some campaigns that are in flight right now, some early results of what we're seeing, and also walk you through like my thinking of why I approached things the way I did. The first thing I want to talk about is, and just for those who don't know, like both experiments are a little bit predicated on moving into like contact level advertising. So when you start optimizing towards the contact level against just like the account level, certain things about how I'd approach like a paid platform changes a little bit. Specifically, I want to talk about B2B surround sound. And when I use that phrase surround sound, which I think is very similar to the way like Kevin talked about it earlier, that's a phrase borrowed from B2C. You know, like when you start demonstrating interest in a type of product, you get hit across all these sort of different ad platforms, different types of creative to move you to that point of conversion for the sale. And, you know, historically, that's actually kind of hard to do in B2B. And we've lived mostly at kind of the account level. What I did is I created a campaign. I'm going to walk you through the setup and the results and all that kind of stuff across connected TV, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We saw about 41% increase in pipeline month over month doing this playbook. So let me move to the next slide here. So my hypothesis was that the combination of sort of sharp creative contact level targeting in surround sound would be a really impactful in our pipeline. So again, surround sound is shown in multiple formats with different kinds of messaging across different campaigns. So that way you're not ever kind of hitting the ad fatigue because obviously every campaign has its own sort of frequency caps, but also like you're actually presenting different angles on the brand and sort of the messaging and positioning that you're trying to get to your ICP. Contact level precision. So I'll show you a little bit more about this, but really this is all about reaching the same buyer personas everywhere. And the unlock for how to make this happen is a consistent sort of targeting layer that extends across campaigns and channels. So what I did is I built one solid kind of ICP-based audience. So in Vector, what that looks like on the right of the screen is in your settings, you get to configure like these are the people who buy from us most, you know, you base that off of your own research internally in-house. We do close one reviews. We find the characteristics and buyer personas, marketing 101 stuff. Then you build that out in your settings in Vector. And then we have something called our ideal customer profile data source. There's a few different data sources you can pull from at the contact level. This is one of them. And there's, you know, hundreds of millions of contacts that we have across like a broad data set with a lot of different publishers. So I built out an audience that I wanted to optimize for about 120 to 180,000 target audience size for connected TV in particular. And then I actually ran connected TV through LinkedIn. Some people aren't aware that you can do this. There's actually two different types of connected TV. One is CTV Select, and one that you can actually run through your LinkedIn campaign manager on the brand awareness campaign objective. What's really great about that compared to going with some other CTV platforms is you can apply vector contact level hyper targeting at that layer, but also you can use LinkedIn's native controls, which actually is kind of important for this play to work, which I'll talk about in a second. And then we use that same audience on YouTube ads, which is really interesting because with CTV, there's no direct response, but there's also not, the ad runs without kind of any skippable button on connected TV. So YouTube kind of gives you an interesting pulse on how the creative resonates in terms of like the watch through rate. So that was helpful, just kind of get an understanding, not just we knew how it performed organically, but seeing how it performed in paid was really interesting on this audience. And then brand solution ads against the same audience, and then thought leader ads against the same audience. And then this is actually kind of a really important point. So with CTV on LinkedIn in particular, LinkedIn Audience Network is turned on by default and you can't turn it off. So what that means is that your targeting layers, however you set them up, whether you use them with a third-party tool like I'm talking about, or if you use LinkedIn's native controls, you have to kind of make sure that your exclusions are really tight so that you're not only will LinkedIn serve your targeting audience, but also if it goes beyond that, you remain kind of within the buyer committee of who you want to see your ads. So then what's really cool about that though is you can create a retargeting audience within LinkedIn based off of who has served your CTV viewers. And I actually did that and added those into the other layers. So we really did have a core audience that was happening across all these campaigns, even the ones that I went a little bit beyond the vector audience. I was able to kind of, through exclusions in LinkedIn, make sure that we had the same audience going across all of our campaigns. So I think like, whenever we talk about paid, like people are always like, tell me your budget, tell me the setup, tell me the structure. And all of those things are worth talking about, and optimizing for them, obviously incredibly important. But I actually think a lot of times, especially in B2B, we absolutely don't give enough attention to creative. And I think it is the differentiator. Most B2B ads are very boring, particularly on LinkedIn. If you're running anything on LinkedIn, single image ads are the most common ad type. And because of that, the auctions for them are insane. The CPMs for single image ads are very, very much inflated because of how competitive they are. I personally like to run them at like a retargeting level, so I know that I'm hitting kind of the people exactly when I want to hit them, as opposed to like a very big brand awareness play that's competitive and expensive. So these are the examples of some of the ads that we ran. We worked with an agency to develop 4 videos. They're about a minute long. Videos are like super on brand for us, but they're also really humorous. They all revolved around one theme, and that one theme was marketers go at any length to land a lead. And so they're all kind of funny and mostly talking about vectors. So we use this as the warm up to the audience that was particularly cold. And then we use the other 2 ads, the solutions ads, and then our thought leader ads. After a couple of weeks of running the CTV, we added those on and retargeted that same audience. So yeah, and also I'll talk about agency spend on this, because I do think like for CTV, you don't want to run just any video on it, because especially the way I had it set up on premium channels, this is like a really important thing, that the creative that you show on CTV matches kind of your brand, so that you're not seeing this cheap. Like you need to kind of invest in some creative here. What we saw from our overall results was about a 34% increase of net new traffic. Of those, it was about 22% increase of sales demo requests and a 41% increase on pipeline month over month. We only premiered on select channels, which is another kind of hack for CTV on LinkedIn. There's about 1,000 channels or so on LinkedIn that you can air on, but you can also narrow by inclusion or exclusion what channels you want to air on. So these were the primary ones we aired on: HBO, Peacock, Disney, Hulu, Discovery. I'll tell you right now, the dopamine hit of someone on LinkedIn being like, I just saw Vector's ad on Bravo is pretty awesome. If only for fun, you should try this someday. And then hopefully your ads air on a premium channel. But seriously, like it actually is like a really powerful mechanism for reaching your buyers. One thing I wanted to call out is...
Sorry, on that point, not to jut in too much, but there was a LinkedIn post yesterday from Cole DeAmbra, who's a member of Domain Collective, but he posted on LinkedIn, seeing all these vector ads on Hulu with my girlfriend was crazy. How are people doing CTV? So it's stuff like that. No one's ever going to be like, oh my God, I saw a bunch of Facebook ads for this company. That's cool. But CTV has that, like, that pizzazz a little bit.
Yeah. And then I want to call this out as well. Whenever you get into hyper targeting across the board, your CPMs are higher. So like generally for CTV, $40 to $60 range for CPM is normal. Ours is about 81 as of now. It's gotten a little bit more expensive. And again, that's because we're running on very select channels. Like of the 1,000 channels that we could have had on LinkedIn, we chose about, I think, 15. So we're paying a premium for that. But for me, that premium is worth it, because I know I'm reaching my exact buyer personas, the people that I want to know about my product. And I'm doing it on premium channels with really good creative. So like the brand recall, brand association is absolutely worth the spend. So yeah, again, these are early results, but I think really promising. And then a lot of people asked about the financials. We spent about $35K on those 4 videos. It took about 3.5 months. Everything from scripting to casting to location input to reviewing edits and going back and forth. There's also, for CTV, you sometimes have to deal with actor renewal rights. So we had to pay about $6K for actor renewal rights for a 3-month term. Our overall budget for this campaign across the board was about $60K. We started seeing early momentum around $20K of spend, just kind of as a FYI. I think it varies quite a bit on your industry and your buying cycles, and also the creative, obviously, I think is another reason, but just as an earmark if you decide to experiment with this. A couple of things that are specific to LinkedIn Connected TV. I think I mentioned a few of these, but these run on brand awareness with LinkedIn Audience Network and it's required. It's by default. You can't get around that. So you do have to like really rein in your exclusions to keep your audience tight. And then I talked about the channels already, about controlling placement with brand inclusion and exclusion lists, and our CPMs as well. And then I think the only other thing that I wanted to call out here is, just making sure that the visibility that you get for this is very minimal in LinkedIn. They do track view through. If you have like LinkedIn Insights on Google Tag Manager on your website, they do track a view through conversion, but generally you're optimizing for reach and trying to control your impression cap. So 5 to 7 a week for the audience size that we're dealing with is what I suggest. Yeah, it was a really fun, successful pilot for us. We're doubling down into it into Q2 as well. Just to recap the playbook for everyone, start with your audience. So I think a hyper-targeted audience is the best to do that with. And for us, we focused really heavily on the buyer personas within the accounts that we wanted to work with. Invest deeply in creative. Obviously, you don't want to run these kinds of ads if the creative isn't compelling. Multi-channel, I think, is the unlock. So CTV, YouTube, LinkedIn feed, and then closing that loop with retargeting. So as important as making sure your exclusions are correct and inclusions are correct on the campaign, also that audience is getting retargeted along with your core segment. Controlling your placements with premium CTV channels. And then we obviously were looking specifically for the lift on net new traffic, demo requests, and ultimately pipeline, not just reach or impressions. So that is the CTV play. That is B2B and surround sound. It's really fun. It's also, it was very cool to just see how quickly those mechanisms all played off each other. And we're also, like, I think thought leadership ads really blew me away in our context in particular, like our engagement rate based off of kind of that retargeting audience that became very warm, performed really well for us. So that is the playbook. I'm now going to go into something just more unhinged than this. So this right here, I feel like I could go to Thanksgiving and I could talk to my mom about it. She'd be proud of me. The next one, I think I'd have to like be on the back porch with my uncle. We're drinking a whiskey. It's close to 11. So search as display. One of the conceits of coming into Vector is like, obviously I'm trying to build specifically with this tool. Like I'm trying to think through like, what are the implications of having a contact level audience that I can get hyper specific with. And so Google is an interesting animal to use. I didn't start where you would think, which would be PMax. I actually started with trying to kind of take a channel that's not designed to do something for me. So I took a Google search campaign. I chose specifically to target kind of the product categories and search terms that are just adjacent to what we do. And I used a very large contact level targeting audience to try and drive specifically leads that get de-anonymized through our tool. So the play here is I want to show up everywhere that the people I care about are looking on Google search relative to like my general product category, and then activate an outbound warm touch point once they see us and they're de-anonymized on our website. So the way this works, I think, breaks a few rules or principles that I try to use when I build Google campaigns. So one is that I use broad match, and again, adjacent to your product category. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and then contact level audience. And really, the effect of this is that you end up showing for searches that are obviously not, like the traditional setup with Google is that you want your landing page and headlines to match the keywords so that the intent is just like super tight, that tight loop. What we're doing instead is we're actually kind of showing up with almost like interjecting an offer into a different intent search, but it's related enough to, and it's a persona that would care about what we sell. So we started with an audience of about 536,000, which sounds like a lot. Our user match rates on Google are about 40 to 45%, but active users within 30 days are lower. We actually just increased our audience size limits. I'm going to test an upper limit of this to see what else we can get out of this. Again, this campaign very much in flight right now. But the goal here, again, contact level. And then what I built on the search campaign was broad match keywords. So for us, like retargeting, ad tech, Reddit ads, LinkedIn ads. And then what I would do is every day I would go in and exclude any keywords that got outside of the range of what I was looking for, which was a little bit, it was based a little bit on my own keyword research, but also just kind of gut instinct spot checking, like, oh, that's like way off. That's in a B2C space. That doesn't make sense for us. And then we have the ability to kind of, when an ICP comes through on Vector, screenshot that ICP card, send a warm message that's lightly personalized, which this is a very simple play. Like this is super simple. This is like getting your brand out in front of your ICP audience at a very kind of broad level. And then once you have a click through that sort of de-anonymizes on your website, you do a lightly personalized outbound. We saw 8 sales demo requests come from this at an average of about $388 per lead. We have 36K sourced in pipeline for this. The call out that I would say is like, when you build something like this, obviously, the math warps really quickly. The CPCs were 4 to 5 times higher than you would pay on any of our other campaigns. Our click-through rate was about 3 to 5% lower than, like, say, a brand campaign. But, at the end of the day, I'm looking at pipeline. I'm optimizing for meetings booked and opportunity. And so we have that. So again, this is super early. It's really exciting. I'm interested to see what it looks like at scale. And I think there's also a compound interest when you run something like this in conjunction with other kind of surround sound plays at the same time. So yeah, that's my take. So if you wanted to get started with this, you would start with the audience, like we talked about. And then one core call out is like your brand headlines. I tried to keep them specific enough to our product solution and what we did, but just close enough to like match a few of the broad keyword match that we had. So like ABM tools, buyer intent, ad tech. For the bidding strategy, using maximize clicks, because I'm actually purposely optimizing for clicks because we de-anonymize website visitors. So I want clicks. Clicks are a lead for me. So I don't need it to be like a high converting campaign because I can get leads coming through from ICP who come to website. And then make sure you're really kind of dialed in on your negative keywords, especially in the first 2 weeks, and then personalizing the warm outbound motion. To be totally frank, we don't have, we're building our outbound motion right now. So I led this. We're about to bring on somebody who's going to go deeper in this. I think there's a lot more to do here, honestly, from like the more mature outbound function here. I think there's a lot more to do. And then again, like your in-platform metrics are going to be warped. So really looking true north towards the total of ICP leads divided by your spend, reply rate, pipeline. Those are the things I'm optimizing the campaign around. So that's my unhinged thing that I would only tell my uncle at Thanksgiving late at night. Yeah, that's the end for me.
Dude, amazing. Amazing. Okay, you know what we do now? Give this a rating, 1 out of 10. Mine would be 199 out of 10. That was, very unhinged. I like want to talk in a compelling way, but I'm just like churning about the implications of using super broad Google keywords with person level targeting and then the de-anon. It's pretty nuts. Okay. Did you guys hear that? Does anyone hear that? Do you hear that, Kelly?
I don't. I'm not sure what you're hearing.
It's a special offer getting dropped in the event live. I just got off the phone with Jess Cook, VP of Marketing at Vector, one of the most creative marketers we know. And what she's offering is to do a 1-hour private session where we go through how they're creating such creative and to give you feedback on your creative. So if you guys are interested in that, special offer dropping in the chat right now, just for people live at Demand Collective. Another poll for you, another poll. Pop in if you're interested. We'll reach back out. We'll do this private session.
Real quick, Eric, I'm going to respond to a question Eric Nicole asks. I think it's really smart. Yeah. Why did I run broad versus phrase? That's more of a question of volume, Eric. So because even with like a big audience, there's Google, like when you upload your custom audiences, it also looks for active users within 30 days. What I found is if I had broad match connected to a hyper specific audience like I had a lot more ability to drive clicks, which ultimately is what I was trying to optimize for. When you do phrase or exact, you're kind of like using targeting on 2 different levels. And so you get less of that volume for clicks. So that was the main reason I went broad.
And there's so many implications of like they're going to see your ad and vector and they won't click it because it's less relevant, but you get all these brand impressions in search, which is that there's so many applications there. Super interesting. Okay, Kelly, this is amazing. Thank you so much. You're the man. If you guys noticed, Eric McCall asked a very smart question. He's also in Demand Collective. Smart people like that join Demand Collective. You should join them. All right, ending the poll. Now we have the next session is really, really exciting. It's about, okay, we'll do this. Put in the chat if you struggle with attribution. Literally everyone. We do application forms through Demand Collective. I would say maybe 80% are like, attribution is so difficult. And we're going to hear a real story about how someone who's very smart at attribution solved it. Nadia at CaliberMind. So I'm going to bring her on stage here. All right. Amazing. Yeah, Nadia is one of the smartest VPs of marketing that I know when it comes to doing great marketing, thinking about marketing the right way, but also in the internal work that we all know is super important, but some of us don't love to do, which is like talking about marketing internally, getting buy-in, telling the story, etc. So Nadia, thanks so much. I'm really excited for this session. The stage is yours. Let's go.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a nice intro. Thank you, Eric. But I don't want to talk about Nadia Davis, VP of Marketing at CaliberMind. I mean, you guys can find stuff on LinkedIn, I'm sure. What I want to talk about is my previous life, where I was Senior Director of Revenue Marketing and Marketing Operations. And I worked for a company that was a client of CaliberMind. That's how I learned about CaliberMind. But I did not start with that. I started with a job offer for a GovTech company in the SaaS space, so technology for governments, right? The company served local and state governments, so residents could pay their utility bills, renew their driver's licenses, and do all of those things that you do, like, I don't know, some of those once a month, some of those once a year, interacting with governments, right? And the sales cycles were where we were not selling to residents, we were selling to governments. And sometimes it would take up to 2 years. So imagine you as a marketer having to report on a quarterly basis, and your sales cycle is 24 months. So there's a lot of storytelling that you got to do, right? And the industry within government is interesting because it's essentially, if you remember that marketing class from college, like way back when, they would talk about negative demand. So that was the space. The governments did not want our services. We were not charging for our services. We would just give them services for free, and we would collect the percentage of what residents were paying for things through our platform, right? But essentially, to sell it to them, you had to really convince and convert that what they had was bad or didn't work, or they really needed to switch. And these people were extremely suspicious of all the vendors in the space because SaaS is the fast-moving world, the government is not, and they were just not overly change ready. And being a marketer in this space, dealing with the fact that the sales cycle is like forever, literally. Governments decide things in groups. It's never one person. It's usually a committee. And those committees would get huge because nobody wanted to make a decision, because you never know if that's a good decision. So you want to make sure you had someone else to say, well, it wasn't just me. It's them and whatever, large group, right? So tracking the buyer journey, figuring out the contacts, and they would change every 4 to 6 years, depending on the voting cycles, right? That was something that I'd never experienced before. And one of the things that was unique about this company, and I'm kind of giving you the background before we kind of dive into the event space, because this is a session about events, was that because we had so much investment from a private equity company, the marketing department especially was under the microscope. Like, governments loved all of the in-person interactions. That's where the story with events and conferences come from, right? But marketing had to do all the digital things, like my team was doing all the digital things, all of the event things. And we were constantly asked, what's the ROI on this, right? And remember, I told you it's a 24-month sales cycle. So within all of that, figuring out how to tell the story of where your budget goes to people that essentially see the world in black and white Our CFO always counted things in dollars, and we were driving engagement. We were hoping that governments would click on our emails. By the way, I learned they don't click on links in emails, so good luck with your click-through rate, right? They would click on our ads. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. It was just something that required a definitely out of the box, that unconventional way of handling all of your data and bringing all of your data together in a way that would allow you to tell the story, even incrementally, right? So I kind of start with the tech stack and where the things were coming from for you to get an idea of what you're working with if you're in that position, right? Salesforce at the center, Marketo was there. I mean, I feel like our tech stack was very it was well optimized. That's not where we started, but that's where I wanted for us to land, and we did, right? We had an ABM tool, we had a Snowflake data warehouse to bring all the data together. We were running Tribly at the time for ABM. We had actually data deduplication and account matching tool, Ringlead. I love that tool. LinkedIn was there, all the traditional social media channels were there, Google ads were there, Clary was there for sales outreach, right? And eventually CaliberMind landed in this world, and we were running webinars, digital events through BigMarker, one of the less popular platforms, but it worked fantastic for us. So this is where the digital side of things was, right? And when it came to all of the campaigns in Salesforce, like I'm a stickler for a naming convention. Michelle in the audience out there, she was on my team. She knows that campaign naming conventions is super important to me because you can filter based on the name. So all campaigns had to be named a certain way in Salesforce, so you can then look up and figure out what relates to what when you're building your buyer's journey. I mean, we ended up doing it with CaliberMind. I used to do it by hand at first. So, both ways. But having that data consistency and data rigor should have landed me in a place where if I am uploading all of these events, and we started with 67. When I was leaving the company, the sales was pushing for 120 events per year. I kid you not, 120 events per year in person, because this government space with low trust, like face-to-face interactions being so important, they wanted to meet you in person. They wanted to see who you are. They wanted to shake hands. Like all of your digital stuff and web presence is fantastic. But to them, unless it was a tangible thing, there's nothing that you could do about it, right? So uploading all of these lists into Salesforce was a doozy, but all of them had to fall into a campaign naming convention that would be 24Q123, then it would be EVN for campaign type event, and then the name and everything else, right? So the thinking is it should be easy to match all of that, since you have it in Salesforce, to opportunities and to revenue. And I'm kind of showing you a sample list of the event madness that was managed in the spreadsheet, right? But I kind of landed myself in this silo where we had all the data. Somebody was mentioning data earlier. We did not have a problem with the data. We had all the data. But the data lived in all of these walled gardens. And what I wanted to show to the business is that it takes several tactics that the marketing budget was aligned to close an account. We were ABM first. A lot of conversations were about ABM. I love them. This was very much true because we only had a finite list of accounts. We needed governments of certain sizes, and you can go to US Census and figure out who of those are, right? So you know your target market. You know who the people are, because all of that is public knowledge. I did not have to figure out, de-anonymization in a lot of cases. I could get those contacts into Salesforce. But what I didn't have is a timeline. And I wanted a timeline where I could see when things were happening on LinkedIn, even though some of them were not on LinkedIn, through the ABM tool, my events, so I could tell a story that, look what's happening before these people come and shake your hand at the booth, if at all, right? And that was very difficult to piece together. The tech stack was fantastic. The sales territories, though, kept changing. The product lines stayed the same, but, the types of upsells kept changing, and how it was appended in Salesforce was different. So the state of how do you bring all that data together in a way that tells a story beyond just one campaign? Because usually, especially around events, the assumption is you do an event, you collect your leads, you come back, you hope that the salesperson uploaded the spreadsheet or gives you the spreadsheet, right? And then you say, okay, these many people want to talk. Oh, so what that they want to talk? Some of them will not be in Salesforce. Sometimes you will chase them. They will never come back to you, right? So it goes way beyond that. I wanted to see event touches. across multiple events, across multiple members of the buying team within those target accounts, on the timeline before the opportunity closed. Now, that's the story that would sell to the CFO, because he'd be like, oh, I see. So this is how many opportunities had impact on events. This is how many closed. So we can give you more money to do 120 events that the sales team was pushing for. So I was tasked when we had a new president that came in from a different company, much larger company. It was a P-backed Rule 40 company. We had to become Rule 40. What Rule 40 is that, you run certain financial ratios and you had to be very lean and mean and very ROI centric, right? And he said, if I gave you $100,000 more, where would you invest it? And tell me why I'm spending this much money, $1.5 million on events. I figured I know my stuff. I pulled everything from Salesforce, which you see on the slide, right? I pulled everything from Marketo, all the touches, all of the accounts. I mean, I could stitch data together. I pulled everything that I could from the ABM platform. And at the time, ChatGPT was in the early stages, but I'm like, we got it. Me and Chat, we're going to figure this thing out. So I uploaded all of the spreadsheets into Chat, said, hey, merge these accounts, gave it the rules. When the date is not known, use this. When the date is known, use that, so that I could get a timeline. And I couldn't. It would go 70 lines, and I had probably, 2,000 lines of records. It couldn't do it. It made a lot of mistakes. And then the InfoSec team got the whiff of me trying to pull things from Map and Salesforce and upload it into an AI tool. That did not go well. So that exercise, I kind of abandoned that. And I said, you know what? I know that the sales wants to double the number of events, or almost double, right? I don't have any proof that events move the needle for revenue. I went and asked all of the sales guys. I gave them a list of, I think it was 400 opportunities. Hey, can you recall any conversations with any of these people that I pulled from Salesforce at an event? If you can, just highlight it in yellow. I got like 2 highlights. We're talking like a lot of events over a period of 1.5 years that I pulled this for, right? Like I had nothing to work with. So that's kind of how I started my search. Like, is there something that can help me bring this data together and put it on a timeline? All of the traditional attribution vendors, I evaluated all of them. And the problem was that unless your go-to-market motion is like very simple in terms of how your Salesforce is set up and everything is like bare bones, super basic, I think, those tools do a fantastic job when they don't have to read custom fields or formula fields or anything else. This was not my case. So I was doing these things manually. Here's an example of a slide that I used to build every quarter. I'm like, I will go to all the different platforms, pull all of the signals, and show people that it takes all of these different touches across multiple platforms before something closes. And they would look at that, they would recognize him that, oh, I remember, CIO, it was such and such. Or I remember in this particular motion, we had advisors. That was an external kind of organization or external people, kind of like lobbyists in the government space that would facilitate conversations. Oh, I remember I was dealing with such and such advisor, right? But I would do it by hand. And I would just pick one opportunity at the time. So definitely not a pleasant exercise, especially when the conversation kind of flips to, if I gave you more money, where would you spend it? And how is that money working for us today anyways? Fast forward to when I could put CaliberMind in place. And CaliberMind is a go-to-market intelligence platform. I mean, I ended up going and working for CaliberMind because it really saved my Friday nights and the reporting nightmare I was facing. I could build the timeline. So I'll help you orient yourself on this slide. Like the top screenshot is essentially the timeline of when all these different touches happen. Because CaliberMind is built on a data warehouse. All the data comes from everywhere. You upload your campaign data from events, and yes, you have to get the names from the events. But you figure out your campaign member types. You have attended the event, you have booth visitors, you have demos at the booth. Like you can designate different engagement statuses for the members so that data would show up the right way on the engagement timeline, right? But I was able to build a timeline for any campaign, for any deal, for any account, so that if somebody wanted to check it on the fly, it's available. I don't have to build my little slide. And then what was interesting, what you see on the bottom here, and we're looking at a anatomy of a deal, what I call it. I used to run it every QBR. We are looking at deals that were won and the deals that were lost, and we're trying to understand the difference. And in this particular page, what you see in gray, and all you care about right now, I mean, this is an unfamiliar kind of way of looking at the data for you, that's totally fine. But what you care for is the gray blocks on this specific view. And on the bottom, we're looking at a funnel, and gray in this particular case is a tactic. It's marketing emails. Marketing emails for governments were always a no-no because they did not want to receive anything, they did not want to click on anything, but we would send them emails to invite them to events and special activations at events. So here's the view where the deal was won and the gray was email with all of the invitations, right? So you even see that in the kind of sales qualified opportunity stage and the late stage opportunities. Now, if I go to the deal that was lost, you don't see those emails. You don't see any event engagement. You don't see any, any marketing touches to accelerate the pipeline, but you do see a lot of sales emails. And somehow sales emails did not do a whole lot here. So once this slide was shown, that kind of, greased my skids. And I was like, okay, I bought myself another maybe 2 weeks to continue doing this analysis. Well, then we kind of went further and we said, okay, let's look at different opportunity types that we're trying to do the events for. It's not just for net new market. Sometimes we meet with customers, we can sell them more. Sometimes we meet with people who already are talking to the sales team and they just want to see you face to face. It's like that reality check, right? They shake your hand and they're ready to continue. And turns out I was sitting there being the enemy of both the CMO and the sales team, saying that I didn't have any evidence to prove that events were working. Well, then this little chart gets put together and, events were driving $6 million in pipeline. And out of a sudden, the CFO was like, whoa, how do we double that? I'm like, wait, I have one manager who is running these events. We don't need to double anything just yet. I just want you to see that the $1.5 million that you're giving me for events, it actually has a meaningful ROI for all these different opportunity types, right? And of course, events drive a lot of new business because we would use a speaking opportunity, we would show up for new customers. But then they were also driving other types of business. So the upsell and kind of acceleration of the pipe, that was important. That was the story that I could not tell without having something to put in front of the sales team. But then they'd be like, oh, we don't believe that. All these numbers, every tool got numbers. The Salesforce dashboard got numbers, right? I was like, well, go click into that. They could click into that and they would see individual opportunities or account names or, the ones that were pulled into this chart. So that kind of drove credibility. The one interesting thing that I uncovered when you guys start thinking about layering different campaigns, activating your people, right? In a lot of cases, accounts that would show up at the smaller events, we're talking about specific segment within the target market, they would also come to webinars, but they would never show up live. This is like, I always thought this was a very boutique case. I've never experienced that in any other business. That's why I'm talking about it. They would never show up live. They would always show up on demand. So this is like the very famous U-shaped attribution model, right? But if I saw that account showing up on demand, because they did not want us to track them live, they thought they were stealthy. And then I knew that they had an event attendance of a booth, I would send it to the BDR and say, hey, these people are ready to talk. And sure enough, once we were able to isolate this segment, and again, having that event data, figuring out the timeline, seeing the patterns of touches and opportunities that get created, we would send BDRs that were working this segment after these accounts to go call on them. And because they had attended the booth, then they validated kind of our relevance in the space on the thought leadership webinar, they would be more likely to talk to a BDR. And the last thing that I will show here, and I know this is a busy thing, but everyone wants always to know like this ROI thing on events, right? And it's so hard to calculate because in a lot of cases, like even right now for CaliberMind, right? The events that we do, nothing happens immediately. It would take between 5 to 7 months to see any trickle effect from events because not everybody is in the buying cycle. People are curious, people will come talk to you, but they're not in the buying cycle, right? And what I was looking at here and showing it to my team, like what I put in this little red box up on top here, right? This is a timeline over a period, over a year. And here it's 25 because I changed the data. This was before then. But you would see that certain months had, based on the sales cycle, event ROI that would be showing up at different increments. But overall, it was more than what the CFO requested, which was 3x. Again, all of this to say that you can do things manually. I used to do things manually. And probably you will get to the point where you can prove a concept to your business. But these are the things that you want to think about. The campaign naming conventions, the timeline, how long is your sales cycle before you start trying to pull event data? Like if it's 5 months, don't try to look at anything events related shorter than 5 months because you will not find anything and it would not be an accurate story. And then the last piece that I will end on, if you use any type of in-platform, like Salesforce got it, many other platforms got it, AI capabilities, and ask questions to campaigns filtered by campaign type, in my case, it was events, amazing stuff comes back. If you're sure that your data is accurate, like for us, for CaliberMind, this is my little shameless plug, it's Agent Cal, right? We already pull all the data together. The data is already on the timeline. Everything is arranged. There's no error or mistake. You can ask questions. Which event performed the best? Which event drove the most net new opportunities? Which event had the most upsell opportunities, right? You will get nuggets of information that you can present on a QBR where just light bulbs go off on the sales side and like, whoa, I didn't know that you guys could track all of that. And out of a sudden you become a legitimate player. I summarized all of that and other things in an ebook. It's a trilogy that we released. CaliberMind sponsored it, but this was kind of like the journey of a marketer that I summarized because I feel like a lot of people in the space, which we called Marketing Means Business. This one does not have a gate. I would not do that to you. So if you're curious about the whole marketing measurement, not with CaliberMind at all, but in general, right? Like when you're talking about what demand gen even does for your business, this is the book. And that's what I got. So if there are any questions, happy to answer.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was awesome. I love the idea of thinking of, so there's like attribution, which is proving impact, but then there's the it can be a strategic thing. Like if you have everything centralized and you can create insights, you can use that to do like the webinar to events thing or other insights that can actually help you find these like golden nuggets of insight that can help your team do better work, which I think all of us can relate to, is the idea of finding those insights and then putting them to work.
And I'm yet to see a person who loves events. There's so much stinking work. There's just so much work, and everybody feels like you can never get anything out of events. You put so much into it, all of the minutia that's so important, because you're essentially hosting people in your booth. That's your experience, right? And to kind of justify all of that, it's so hard to do. So it's not just the story of an attribution. It's like, how do I wrap my mind around telling the story of why the heck we're doing this stuff?
Yeah, totally. Great stuff. Any questions? We got 2 minutes. Stephanie had one. Do you have goals per event type that help identify the types to stop doing, continue doing, etc.? Well, that's a good question. Yeah.
I think that's a great question. I think for every event, I want multiple activations. I don't want just to stand there like, I don't know if you guys ever saw the Frozen cartoon. My kids were little when it came out. So I remember that Swedish guy in the outpost when Elsa and Anna are walking through the snow and they stumble upon the shack and he goes, summer blowout sale. Like you don't want your salespeople to stand there with that in the booth waiting for someone to come up, right? You want multiple activations. So I love having dinners. I love having speaking opportunities. Without those, like I don't even want to go to an event. I like having raffles at the booth, something that pulls people to your booth to start a conversation, which may not even be about what you're selling, but just to get people talking. Maybe you could do, I've done morning runs, like you work with the event organizers, say, hey, if there's a group, I'm happy to host a run or yoga session. People do that too. Sponsoring a breakfast or like doing lanyards, that's something that has never worked for me.
100% agree with that. Feel free to bunt if there's not enough time to answer this question, but Michael had one. How do you handle skepticism from the C-suite on your attribution reporting?
That's a great question.
And question, but maybe
that's a great question. And I'll answer it this way. Attribution is an operational layer framework or lens that you're looking at. If you go to a CFO who is way up here and you are trying to kind of explain to them campaign level insights, because attribution looks at campaign level insights, like you're going to lose that conversation because they're the bird that flies at 30,000 feet. If you were looking at different models and attribution is one of those models, right? It could be marketing mix modeling, because to them, they're thinking about the big picture. If I gave you 500,000, which channel would you invest it into? Attribution doesn't answer those questions. It's a different model, right? But attribution is very well used for your marketing leader to tell them how the operational stuff is working. It works great for QBR level stuff, right? To say, this is our proxy to translate marketing engagement to revenue, because marketing drives behaviors. Like, don't tell me that you drive pipeline unless you're the one opening opportunities in Salesforce. You drive engagement that translates into pipeline at the end of the day, right? And some model has to help connect the dots. And that's what attribution does. And it's not 100%, nor is it a model that does things beyond that. I think it's overhyped in a lot of cases, and we just got to be realistic at what level this conversation happens.
Such good advice. Yeah, that's a big. I've been doing more interviews with VPs of marketing on like how they got there, which will be coming out in the Demand Collective newsletter. But almost everyone is like, you have to understand how to frame things and present them in the right way internally, which means what stories do you tell, at what altitude are you speaking, all that stuff is really important. So that's great. All right, thank you so much, Nadia. This was amazing.
Thanks, Eric.
You want to drop your LinkedIn if people can connect with you?
Sounds good.
All right. Are you guys ready? We have Claude. I'm going to drop you to an attendee, Nadia. We have Claude Code all over our LinkedIns. Everyone's talking about it. It's pretty cool. But where are the real VPs of marketing who are actually using it every day? Where are those people? The answer to that question is maybe now? Maybe there we go. Right now, this is where the VPs of marketing are. Let's go.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Chris Shuptrine, a real VP of marketing, going to share 6 ways he's using Claude Code at work. Chris is a longtime Demand Collective member and one of the smartest VPs of marketing I know. He did another newsletter with us about his high intent discoverability framework, which you should check out on our Substack. But I'm very excited for this session. Chris, 6 ways you're using Claude Code at work. Can't wait. The stage is yours. Let's go.
Great. And you can see me, hear me, everything?
Yep.
All right. Let me pull up here. Sorry, I had to switch computer. I thought I was logged in the other one. That's
the game. We get it. We're marketers. No worries.
I know. Good thing I had both open and watching it. Okay.
Oh, you were on 2 different accounts. That's good. Pumping our attendee numbers.
I know, I actually signed up with another account because I was waiting for the confirmation code. So 3 from me. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining this session about Claude Code and marketing and how a real VP of marketing uses Claude Code to do really cool things. I only have 20 minutes to go through 6 use cases and I have 40 slides. So I'm going to talk faster than I normally do. Hopefully there's at least a couple minutes for questions. In practicing, I ranged from 16 minutes to 30. So we'll see where we end up there. So a little bit about me first. I'm the VP of Marketing at Torii. Torii is a B2B SaaS platform that helps companies manage their B2B SaaS tools. So we've raised about 60 million. We're 70 employees, and the marketing team's 4 folks. Really great employees, myself, a demand gen, product marketer, and content. Really, really love that team. Relevant facts about me. I've been in B2B SaaS for almost 20 years, leadership roles for half that. I have no formal technical training, so don't be like, oh, Chris has like a ton of Python experience. I can't do that. Like, no technical training. I also have a cat that will come into play later on. I promise it's relevant. So first, I'll give a background about Claude Code because not everyone may understand what it is. Claude Code is effectively just a way to chat with the LLM Claude through an app on your computer that's pre-existing called the command line interface, also called CLI. So if you look to the left, you can open the terminal on a Mac like that, and it pulls up this, and then you would just initiate Claude Code, usually just putting in Claude, and Claude Code opens. Now, Claude Code is not a special model. It's not like, oh, you only get access to Claude Opus 9.3 through the CLI. This is just Claude Opus, Claude Sonnet. It's the same models on the back end as their desktop app, API, etc. So you may say, well, that seems confusing. I don't know the CLI, like it's very engineering focused. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the truth is, it's not confusing. It's just a prompt box that gives you answers. If you're like willing to go into the app or the UI and use it there, the CLI experience is just like slightly less pretty, but it's the same core concept. There are some like things you have to set up, dependencies on your computer to get it to work. So it's not just like it works immediately, but that's steps you can just ask Claude to walk you through. So it's really not as confusing as it may seem like because it's a dev tool. And what's great about Claude Code and what differentiates it from the general UI cloud ways of accessing it is 2 things. One, the ability to work with local files. So the ability to go to your downloads file, your documents folder, and edit, create, read, etc., all of your local files that you can't just do at chatgpt.com. Also, MCP. Now, literally nobody knows what MCP means or stands for, but what it is effectively is a way of connecting apps together. And if you work in SaaS, there's a good chance that you already have an MCP connector out there. Otherwise, like all of the big ones, HubSpot, Salesforce, Notion, they have this. And it's just a way of connecting these tools to Claude Code and being able to tie everything together. Now, somebody's going to say, can't Claude app do this? And like also, doesn't OpenAI have Codex and Gemini have a CLI tool? And the truth is, yes. Like Claude Code, the desktop or Claude app recently launched the ability to do code through the app. OpenAI's Codex is a CLI tool similar to Claude Code. So I would say don't get hung up on like, oh, Claude Code, this experience Chris is going to talk through is the only way that you can do what I'm about to talk through. But the core idea is connecting an LLM to local files and MCP integrations. Personally, I find Claude Code to be the most mature solution out of all of these, and there's a lot of reasons I can go into that later or another time. So yeah, that's kind of the background about Claude. Hopefully that is helpful in setting the stage for the projects I have done using Claude Code. So use case 1, Google Ads. And I apologize that it's very zoomed out here. The other sections, it's zoomed in. I just wanted to kind of give you a highlight of how it thinks. So with MCP, I'm able to connect my Google Ad account to Claude Code. So I can interact and talk with my data through Claude Code. So here I said, I recently increased CPC bids for a branded campaign, trying to test out if higher bids would increase my absolute impression share and get me more clicks, or if it wouldn't do anything. And I was like, you know, this prompt took 30 seconds to write. I went to the bathroom and I came back. And by that point, it created a scatter plot graph for the couple weeks before and the couple weeks after of how changing the bids impacted it. And then it also gave me the summary of what the differences were. And, you know, it effectively was like, you're an idiot. Don't do that. You just paid more for the same amount of clicks, which was my hypothesis going into it. So I was happy with that. But, you know, all of this great data at my fingertips with a single prompt. And then you can use this for a lot of different ways on Google Ads as well. So here I wanted to understand what were some search terms I could add as negative terms. I think anyone who does Google Ads these days knows that phrase match is the new broad match. So you really have to go in and figure out, all right, what should I add as a negative term? So I just said, all right, can you load up all my campaigns? Tell me if there's anything I should add. And it did its thing. I went to the bathroom again. Don't ask. And I came back, and sure enough, it was like, branded. You have sushi. You're appearing for Torii Sushi. Probably not something that's B2B SaaS related. So added that. And then, you know, all the different campaigns. So it's just a really great resource to get access to the Google Ads data. And, you know, this is nothing I can't do myself, although I still really don't understand the Google Ads UI, clicking around. So this is like so much easier than going in, finding the right spot, downloading this, figuring out where the scatter plot function lives in Excel. So you can think about just all the ways this can improve your efficiency by chatting with your data. Use case 2. So I really like this tool called Linear. It's a project management tool. Main reason is it has a really nice MCP integration with Claude Code. Notion, I'm sure, because this is like what they're going to with Agentic, probably has a great one as well, but I happen to like Linear. So here I'll communicate with Claude Code. I'll say, hey, create a linear ticket to do competitive research on the top governance SaaS tools in Europe. And this may be something I'm doing something else and I have an idea, I'm like that. And then I'll check my linear projects a couple of times a day to see what's there. In linear, there's a competitive research, top 5 identity SaaS tools. And it's giving me my objective, the scope, the suggested tools. So that just like, absent-minded note taking is suddenly now this like clear project. I can add to-dos, backlogs, priority, etc. And it's also so much better than like going into Notion and just adding that as a to-do because it's already built out here. So this is, again, the MCP integration, that ability to connect Claude Code to various other tools really makes it valuable. And I can always then say, hey, Claude, read this linear ticket and let's talk through how we can address it. This is a great one to use with the Google key terms example, because after it returns your results, you can just say, hey, create a ticket to review these negative key terms and add them to Google Ads. The reason you can't push it is the Google Ads one is a read-only access, which just means it can read your data, but you can't make changes. So I can't go to Google Ads and say, hey, now implement these negative key terms. I wish you could, but it's simpler and probably more security focused not to be able to do that. So 3, programmatic SEO. I use LLMs to create these listicle articles like best box access review platforms or top 6 tools for doing access reviews on HubSpot. Before you say, Chris, aren't you contributing to AI marketing slop? The answer is yes, unapologetically so, because vendor articles, listicles were always marketing slop. And now I'm just taking the human out of it and just using an AI. So, I can focus on more important projects that do contribute to the world's content. But basically what I do here is I use Claude Code to initiate a command. A command is just a saved prompt. So it lives on this file that's on the computer, on the computer, it's on old. So it lives there and it accesses that every time it initiates Claude. And with this, I have instructions on what to do. And the main instruction is to pull up linear ticket. And in there, I have a multi-step process for creating these blog articles. Step 1 talks about, okay, pick 8 of these 30 predefined vendors, do research about their capabilities for that particular tool, and then write step 2 here, write article draft using Opus. Step 3 is edit that. Step 4 is create the facsimile and images, etc. And Claude goes through the command and produces this at the end. Because this is tied to a GitHub Netlify hosted like programmatic side of our content, as soon as it's done, it automatically goes live. So this is like literally, I just say, hey, initiate it. It picks a vendor that it hasn't done before or an app it hasn't done before and pushes it live. So really great. And a nice thing too about the commands is, you may just say, well, it's a saved prompt. Why don't I just add this to a Notion, copy and paste back into the prompt box when I need it? It's because this is iterative. If it makes a mistake and I'm like, Claude, you're being stupid. Why did you do this? It'll say, whoa, whoa, whoa. You told me to do this in the command. And I say, pull it up. Now edit the command so you never do that again. So you can like use Claude to evolve Claude, which is really nice. And then like over time, these commands have become optimized to what you need. So like, for instance, this whole blog process took months to get to a point where I felt like there didn't need to be a human in the loop, but the tickets are like 300 lines long just to get there. So those programmatic articles are hosted on this like side repo that we have, but our main site and our main blog is hosted on WordPress. I don't know who's used WordPress, but if you have used it, it's not really a great tool, and it is especially not great for mass search or mass edits to articles. The first thing I did was like, let me see if I can download those files locally, because with local files, there's a lot you can do. So I asked Claude Code to build a WordPress API connection and connect to WordPress's API and then download all of those blog articles onto my computer. I honestly didn't know if this was possible. I had not perused the WordPress API docs. I didn't know. I didn't give Claude really any instructions beyond that. I didn't seed it with the lists of like, here are the API docs. Sure enough, like within 10, 15 minutes, it had built this Python script, and running that Python script downloaded all of the blog posts to my computer, which is really cool because, as I keep saying, with local versions of the files, you have the ability to run Claude against them. So I said, in this situation, can you go through all of these articles and update any 2025 mentioned 2026, right? So a lot of us have blog articles that's like, the top governance tools in 2025, but if it's 2026, it kind of looks odd. LLMs are also starting to prioritize content that's more recently edited or created, so updating it is going to be important. So I said, can you go through and you update that? And sure enough, it went through all 300 articles in a couple of minutes, made those changes, and pushed them live. And something like how to track AI costs in 2026 was now updated from 25 to 26 pretty quickly. So like just a really amazing tool there. And before this, I mean, with WordPress, like this may have taken me like 2 days to do because I would have to find the articles that had that, go through each one manually, update it, save it. So like going from a day or two of work to like literally 5 minutes is something that's just truly transformative and like how we as marketers can work by tying and using Claude Code in a lot of these ways. So use case 5, Playwright. And I'm not referring to myself, even though I have had a play professionally produced. But before you think that's impressive or a humble brag, like 35% of people did request refunds. So it's kind of more embarrassing at this point than anything. But no, I'm talking about Playwright, the browser tool. And this is like an automated tool that visits a browser and then interacts with it, takes screenshots, look at the page source, just understands that if anything's right or wrong there. And it has a really great MCP integration. So in this case, I asked it to do an audit of Torii HQ, our homepage, and identify if there's any bugs, typos, issues, etc. Now, you could also say, hey, go to this list of competitors, take screenshots of their pages, or download or keep track of all of their H1s and H2s and then put together a positioning matrix on what they're saying. And it would do that with Playwright. But in this case, I wanted to do a site audit, and it came back with a bunch of things. I did this like 2 days ago. I still haven't fixed these, kind of embarrassing. It appears we have a staging domain link on our about page, so I need to fix that. But this is an audit that you probably would pay SpiderFrog for or somebody on Fiverr to do, and it can help with user experience, help with technical SEO to fix all of these things. And if you pair that with Linear, you can say, hey, please create a ticket for all of these items, and then in that process, give me the step-by-step fix on how to take it. And then suddenly you have a project management tool that tells you, all right, these are everything you need to tackle. So Playwright is a really awesome integration for like testing if your site is working. I've done it with mobile versions too and say, hey, is anything broken on my mobile site? So the 6th case, vibe coding. And now vibe coding is a very polarizing term these days. It means some things to some people, other things to other people. And this is where having a cat comes in because I love cat memes. So if you want to get on my good side, just send me a cat meme. But basically when I say vibe coding, I'm not saying, hey, go build the next Slack and think something you built over the weekend is like enterprise ready. No, this is internal marketing automation. Building marketing systems yourself, internal tooling, etc. I mean, via technically vibe coding, where you're just telling Claude what you want and it builds it. So in this instance, I really wanted to do competitor research on a big competitor. I wanted to pull all of their help docs so I could do analysis on them. So I just said, hey, how do I do this? Can you do this for me? I want to download all of their docs as text files. Can you pull them and just extract them? So it did its thing. And sure enough, about 30 to 40 minutes later, it took a bit for this one. It had found 3,500 URLs with the category, with the article title, with the article URL. And it had created a Python script so I can run this whenever I want in the future and not have to use like tokens for the LLM again. And then this visited the site, downloaded all of the data on it. And what is more impressive about this for anyone that's done scraping before is scraping a site via the page source is really hard because if it just scrapes everything, it's going to scrape words in the navigation, words in the footer, noise for this type of analysis. But it was able to say, okay, I don't want to take anything that's in a div class around a footer or a nav and only want to download the key things. So it's just like very smart, very intuitive, and able to give you what you want, which is great. I love it. And so now that it's all local, that means we also have I have ability to do analysis around it. So I can say, hey, Claude, can you look at all the access risk management blog or help articles that these people have written and compare that to what Torii has built and then to identify any product gaps? I wouldn't want to like ask it to analyze 3,500 articles at once because that would exceed the context window, but like category by category. This is the type of analysis that you may have paid like somebody on Upwork $2,000 to go and find and copy. And now you can get it for the pro plan was enough tokens for this. So it's just like absolutely amazing what you can do here. And all of that, what I just showed was from this 2-sentence prompt that took me 30 seconds to write. So yeah, I think is that my final? How did I do there?
Let's go. Right on time. Oh man, that was top notch. Let's do it again. Ratings in the chat.
All right. Start from the beginning.
1 out of 10. Someone, Harsha said, quote, Chris, this has got to be one of the funniest and most actionable webinar sessions I've attended in my life. The WordPress API hack is brilliant. Let's go. We got some 500 out of 10s.
Making me blush.
10 meows, 10 plus, 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 plus. Mine is overwhelmed. Same. This is amazing. We got 2 minutes. Any questions for Chris? Also, I'm just gonna float this. I asked Chris for a lot of stuff, and he's very nice and says yes. He may not say yes to this, but immediately what came to mind was like, we got to get you to do a session in Demand Collective where we can nerd out on this stuff, interactive. People are showing their AI use cases, what they've built. We can go back and forth. Any interest in that? Throw in the chat if that's interesting. And
yeah,
I'll say, Chris, you have to do this, and then he'll say, it. Okay, no one's saying it's interesting, so I guess we won't do it, guys. That's what you get.
Yeah, feel free, anyone, to like reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me questions. I clearly am pretty passionate about this and love it. So happy to nerd out on it. And also to echo like what people have said already, if you're not a part of Demand Collective, please join it. It is a great group. And Eric is an amazing man, and not just because of that 10 out of 10 mustache. He's really a rock star. So please join. It's free. What do you have to lose?
Okay, let's see if we have time for one. Okay, this is interesting from Audrey. It's basically just like, how long did it take you to learn all of these? But just like generally, you had no technical expertise. But yeah, I don't know. What's your honest take on like, if someone wants to go down this rabbit hole, like what they can expect from a time investment to being able to do stuff?
I've been using ChatGPT when it came out, because it was the first one, to do marketing automation like since it came out. So like definitely learning over time how I can use it to like write code to build things that I would like. Claude Code, I probably first downloaded it 4 months ago. It's not super old either, so it's not crazy. And then just playing around with it through there. There's some levels of complexity when you're thinking about like, what is MCP? How do I integrate it? But like, honestly, I just say, can you do this for me? And it says, I updated the files. So you don't have to go to like the JSON files and add the MCP integration yourself. It'll do that for you. So I think there's a learning curve, but if people have used like any ChatGPT or any like LLM prompt box, like it's not that different. And you just have to learn what like connectors exist out there, how you prompt it to work with local files, how it works, how do you set it up in certain folders and not folders. But I'm not gonna say it's like in a day, but over the course of a couple weeks, couple months of using it, I feel like you'll think it's pretty easy.
Okay, and then I'll just say this, which is like through Demand Cloud, I talk to people recruiting often, and like you gotta have to learn this stuff if you want to be like viable on the job market, to be direct, which is like every person recruiting is like, I need that AI native person who knows strategy but also can be hands-on keyboard. So like I am like not as AI pilled as a lot of people, and I still think it's like probably the most important thing to learn as a marketer. So like worth it, even if it takes a long time, worth it. How else are you going to spend the time like doing more LinkedIn ads? I guess like this is the thing. So amazing. Chris, thank you so much. This was awesome. You're the man. Connect with Chris on LinkedIn. Give him compliments about his cat. That was his cat actually strangling the other cat, talking about coding.
I should have put an actual image of my cat. Oh well, he's super cute.
Right. And retention hacks too. That's a meta takeaway from this. You mentioned the cat at the beginning. Wait until the end. That's good stuff. He's a marketer. All right. This next session I'm super excited for. This is something that I know nothing about, so I can't wait to learn, which is how to optimize your website for how AI agents browse, with someone who's probably the best positioned to know this, which is Kevin White at Scrunch. So Kevin, I'm going to bring you, just because he has so much data and access, Kevin, I'm going to bring you on stage. Promote to panelist.
Can you demote me or do I have to leave?
Chris is going to stay here for the jokes. He can just chat in. No, I'm
all right. Yeah, I'm here. I think it's flipped. Is it flipped for me or just?
No, it just flipped for you. It looks maybe a little fuzzy for us, which is on me, but it's great. We can see this.
Okay, it's flipped for me, but I will ignore that. Okay, let me just share my screen, get right into it. I have like a lot of content, 20 slides. I have Claude Code pulled up, although I'm not really using it for this presentation, but I very much agree with the last tail end of that, which is like, we're looking for that as a prerequisite for hiring. I'm definitely in that same boat. And the best way to learn is just jump in and do it. So anyways, let's get on to the presentation side of things. I will share my screen. Hopefully this works. You can see it. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, like I said, gonna go kind of rapid fire here, and hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end, and maybe even some time for like a live demo, which is really fun because that usually goes great. Okay, so first thing is a very obvious slide. It's like, okay, why should you care about AI as a platform, as a channel? There's got to be over 1 billion people using it. ChatGPT posted numbers around like 900 million by now. No, it was in February. By now, there's 1 billion on ChatGPT alone. So there's probably 2 billion, lots of people using this AI as a platform, obvious. The TLDR is like, it's the next massive growth channel. We're here with a bunch of demand growth people. You're probably thinking about, how do I tap into this channel? And I'm going to rapid fire through some of this stuff and then get to the like website optimization stuff more toward the end. But the first thing, like, this is actually really important, is to understand like the mechanics of how AI platforms are different than traditional search and all this kind of stuff, because that really makes a difference in how you measure and how you benchmark yourself, and whatever the Peter Drucker quote is, what can't be measured can't be optimized or whatever. Like, this definitely applies for this practice. So the biggest thing actually that I like to talk through or kind of pontificate about is that, yes, there are advocates out there who say, AI search or AEO or GEO is the same thing as regular search. But the actual biggest difference is in the user experience, where the search user experience, you are going and clicking on links, doing the research. The AI experience is all compressed into one place. So there's not people visiting your website, which is an important thing that I'll come back to later. So essentially you get people going search, click, 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 review, read. There's a lot of activity happening here where AI is just like not one shot, but one platform to get all the answers. A very different user experience. Because of that, people are on those platforms rather than visiting your site. I have like this, not graveyard, but a lot of news or LinkedIn posts or whatever about, these massive organic traffic search sites losing traffic. This is certainly something that a lot of marketers are either worried about if they have big platforms, or they're like, oh, maybe there's a different channel, which, I'm going to talk about a little bit more. So the place most people actually I see get hung up on like, how do I know if AI platforms are driving growth for my site, my brand, my product, whatever, is that most people just start here using Google Analytics or some analytics platform for, am I getting traffic from these sources, which is how you typically measure things in the search world. But now I think it's the tip of the iceberg. There's all this stuff below it, all this activity that's happening again on the user experience side of things. Is your brand showing up? Is your brand being cited? Is your brand being mentioned in different citations? These are all factors that are part of the long tail of the user journey, or the early part of the user journey, the preceding to visiting your website and making a transaction. So it's like a different way of measuring that is very different from the SEO world. There's a slide here about differences of SEO versus a traditional search. I like to call it trad search versus AI search. The user experience I touched on. The answer outputs are a lot different. It's not 10 blue links. It's not as it's more predictive than it is binary. There are different performance metrics I touched on already. The way that these bots are crawling the sites are actually different, and I'm going to touch on that in either a demo or some slides. And then the results are very different. Like usually on search, there's very like deterministic results, whereas by design on AI, there's probabilistic results. And then also one thing I'll touch on, or I'll say, is that there are a lot of experts in methodologies in the SEO world. On the AEO world, there's a lot of people who are new to the space. It's changing very fast, and so don't listen to people like me. Just like go out there and learn it is my recommendation. Eric, I saw you come in line. Is there something going on, or we're good?
Nope.
Okay.
This is great.
Okay, cool. So and this kind of gets on into the way to measure it, and the way to track performance is actually very different than how you would with traditional SEO and search. We have this analogy, our data scientist at Scrunch has this analogy of the way you track AI search and performance is more like a weather pattern. You're looking at lots of different data points and trends historically that give you like the whole picture, whereas search is very deterministic. It's like, are you showing up in the 10 blue links or not? And then where are you in comparison with your competitors? That's typically how people look at performance with search. And then there's also like search volume and stuff like that as well, which I can get into in Q&A. So this is what this looks like. This is a screenshot of Scrunch. All the AI monitoring platforms typically do this. I'm going to be using Scrunch for this, and there's lots of reasons to use Scrunch versus others, but I'm not going to pitch us too much. But some of the things we can show, or one of these platforms can show, is how you're trending over time, what your brand presence is, what your citation presence is, what the sentiment is in the responses that are returned. You can look at different things like what model for the same prompt, what model is citing us, mentioning us, where are our competitors, all this kind of stuff is how you kind of like measure this over time versus like a kind of a snapshot of just like, where do we rank in search? It's very like different. You're looking at trends, not like a snapshot almost, or like an end of month like kind of snapshot. Okay, so how do you grow your AI search presence? There are 3 ways. I'm going to focus mostly on this page optimization bucket right here, but there's typically content creation. I have a content gap to fill. I'm going to fill that with content that I'm going to publish on my blog or some other outlets like docs. There is mention acquisition. There are third-party authoritative sources that AI is citing. How do I get my brand mentioned in them, or how do I become one of those authoritative sources? And then there's page optimization, which is AI bots are visiting my site. How do I make my site more visible, more optimized for those visits? So touching on the first 2 real quick, the practice here is essentially looking at the trends, and then understanding where do we have content gaps, surfacing those content gaps, and then prioritizing them so that you'd hand them off to a content editorial lead, or you generate AI content yourself, fill those gaps, and then you start to show up better. Pretty obvious thing here. It's just like there's content, or there's things that people are searching for. There's not great content that fits that. Like, let's fill that gap with content. The other way that is also very effective, I would say, doing this myself, is finding the third-party sites that are authoritative sources that the AI platforms are citing. The citations show up as those like little gray pills in the responses. That means that like they're referencing this domain, the content on this domain, snippets of this domain to return back an answer. One thing you can do with a monitoring platform is look at all the third-party citations, look at how many prompts they're being cited for, how many responses they're getting across the prompts they're tracking, and then that gives you sort of like a prioritized list of, these are the third-party sources that I should partner with, that I should get mention acquisition, exchange reciprocal links, etc. There's a really cool, I can plug this product. This is a product called Noble. That's noble.com. They kind of broker this backlink mention exchange. They're partnered with us at Scrunch, but it's really like handy because you don't have to do all that like outbound exchange, like exchange dollars, exchange link for link. It's like they're doing all this with software. And the really cool thing that you can do with them is like you can load all your prompts that you're tracking into their platform, and then they'll find these kind of authoritative sources that are being cited for you, and then exchange, like broker the exchange to either pay for placement or get a reciprocal offer, something like that. It's like a very cool, useful service. Okay, so let's move on to the main show. Looks like I have 10 minutes. I'm going pretty fast here. Website optimization. So this is essentially, let's get into some of this. The way that you search, and I kind of touched on this earlier, is we have, these are some of the searches that I've done in the last week or so, comparing credit cards, finding me, help me find like an office, help me fix a dishwasher. These are all happening, and I am staying on, in this case, ChatGPT to get the answers. I'm not visiting a website. And so in this world, humans aren't visiting your website anymore, AI is. And so that kind of begs the question, like, what is your website for? And this is the premise of what we built Scrunch on top of. So in this world, your website is not going away, but 90% of your human visitors will. And we're even seeing, more than 50% of our visits, granted we're an AI company, but are from AI bots to our site. So when you think about this too, the user that's prompting an AI platform has intent, there's purchase intent. They're not the ones visiting your site. The AI bots or the AI traffic or agents are visiting your sites. If you're using Claude Code or OpenClaw or anything like that, I guess you can classify that as an agent that's visiting the site. But these are now your primary visitors because there's a person with intent behind that prompt or that query. And so you need to pay attention to that traffic and then also optimize and deliver good experiences for that traffic to show up in the answers. And then eventually there could be commerce that happens as the AI platforms are establishing protocols, doing the paid performance side of thing. All this kind of is going to develop over time. And so you're going to need to pay more and more attention to the AI agents that are visiting your site. So the 3 steps to do this is 1, just understand that traffic that is visiting your site. There are different types of AI agents that are visiting your site. There's like a neural indexer bot. There's a training bot that is like building all the training materials for the model. And then the kind of fascinating one to me is this retrieval bot. It's kind of like a RAG bot. Someone doing a search, that bot is then going in real time, visiting your site, extracting information, and then pulling it back your site or other people's sites. And so those are the retrieval bots. That's kind of like what I'm talking about here, or what I'm mostly mentioning here. We can see, you want to see like which models are visiting your site the most often and what pages are being visited the most too, because that's where the rich area of information that the AI bots are grabbing and pulling back to your site, or pulling back as a response. You want to then know like where to focus, like look at the global site map that you have, know what pages are getting the most traffic, what pages have the most citations, where you're getting referral traffic to. This is at the human level. And then you can kind of prioritize like, okay, where do I focus my efforts based on the searches of the prompts that I want to show up for? And then the last piece here is on the technical side is like, can these AI bots crawl my site? Are they getting stuck? Is robots.txt blocking them? Are we delivering content in a way that they can consume with schema and all this kind of stuff? Are we front loading our site with like too much media and JavaScript, which the AI bots can't read? And this is one area to like focus, not only to address like the human experience, like you want to make sure that humans are visiting your website and also have a good experience, but also like when AI visits your website, are you able to change and adjust how that bot visits by identifying it at the CDN layer and then serving up a real-time version of an optimized version of a page, which I'm going to demo if I have time in the next 5 minutes. So yeah, great. Let's do it live. So we have here, I'm going to demo Scrunch here for a little bit. So we have here this agent traffic view. This is looking at scrunch.com. This is kind of the same thing that I was showing earlier, showing AI traffic that's visiting your site. We can see here that we're getting actually more human visits than we are bot traffic. Sometimes this flips, sometimes it doesn't. We can look at what kind of bots are crawling the site here. We can look at, again, the models that are visiting the site, the top pages, and then even in the real-time view of like how bots are coming to your site and what content they're consuming. So in the since 12/15 when I started, there's been quite a lot of ChatGPT retrieval visits to our site. The next thing is looking at, okay, of all the pages on our site, where are bots visiting the most? and where should I be focusing my efforts. I can kind of like sort this by a score to see where I should focus my efforts. I like to use the about page as an example. So let me type in that, and I can go to the about page. It has a decent amount of agent traffic, citations. We can look at, are the AI bots able to consume this page? When's the last time they visited the page? Is it being indexed or not? I can look at the prompts and the topics that I want to be showing for in these platforms, and cross-reference that with the intent of the page. So I can say, oh, these are the prompts that this page should be being cited for, and your brand should be surfaced as. Is it showing or not? I can look at to see prompts that do not cite this page. This is kind of like the area where I want to focus and like bolster this page to rank for these prompts. Where things start to get even more interesting, I kind of showed this already, which is like on the technical side, are you passing access controls? Are you delivering content the right way? Is your content the right kind of content for AI to consume based on the prompts that you are trying to show for? And then on the optimization side of things, we can say, okay, based on all these prompts that you're looking at, is there an issue with the page? What should you change? And the coolest part that I love to show about our product is the delivery mechanism to optimize this page and deliver a version of it that's optimized for AI. So to do that, I can go to my content delivery tab here. I can look at our page here. I can say, let's go to our pricing page and say, like, how do we optimize this page for AI bots that are visiting? And we can see here that I spelled that right. Yeah, the human view that we have built is 129,000 tokens. On the agent side of things, it's only 1,240 tokens. And so we're able to like take all this excess code here and deliver an experience to the AI agent that can consume that page that's token light and delivers content in a way that the AI bot wants to consume, can consume it very easily, and then return that information back to the user. Thought it'd be fun to do a little demo there. I hope it doesn't feel like too much of a Scrunch pitch. I apologize if it does. I talk about this stuff a lot on LinkedIn, and for anyone who books a demo today, we will give a $50 offer as long as you work at a company you're employed. Cool. That's all I have.
It's strict qualification criteria.
Yeah.
Good job. This is amazing. Thanks so much. This is really, really cool. So I will be honest. I've been live on this event for, I don't know, 3 hours. I had to go to the bathroom, so I may have missed this. But how do you actually, so I'm assuming maybe I'll go have this question too. How do you actually split like the agent view and the person view?
I should have touched on that. So it's at the CDN layer. So CloudFront, Akamai, Cloudflare, Vercel, you can identify this bot traffic coming in and then serve the AI agents a different version of your site at that layer. So it happens at the edge. It's super fast and it doesn't like degrade performance. So you kind of have your cake and eat it too, where humans can have the experience that they're looking for or that's optimized for them, and then agents get a different experience. But it's the same URL.
Wow. So what does the agent optimized page actually look like? Is it just a bunch of code?
The ideal state is actually, I guess I could go back here. So it's kind of like the code version of Markdown. So like this is essentially giving me all the information on the page. It just looks kind of like a Markdown file. I guess this is HTML where it's just like paragraph, bullets, headings. It's a very stripped down version of HTML, but it's taking all this superfluous stuff on this. You can see there's lots of JavaScript and et cetera in here, and just giving you like a really stripped down version of HTML.
Okay, that's very cool. This is awesome. This is great. Let's see. We have 5 minutes. Any other questions for Kevin?
Do you tailor content for specific LLMs or just aim to make it generally LLM friendly? I would say the way that you could do this is based on here. Let me go to a different demo environment here. The way that you would do this is kind of look at the prompts that you have, and you can then look at the different the prompts that you're tracking that you're ranking for or not, and you can say like, oh, Claude, for example, here, although it's like showing high presence, and we're not having a citation here, so maybe we need to look at the citations that Claude is using and see if we can either partner with one of those citation sources or create content that is better than one of the citations that's showing up. So that's kind of the value of using like a product or a platform where you're like taking these daily snapshots, is so you get like the whole picture of what models are citing or referencing your brand, and then you can kind of drill into see like, okay, how are they deciding sources of truth or authority, and then you can kind of like reverse engineer it from there.
Beautiful. Super. This is crazy.
Strip down
Go ahead.
HTML is hosted by Scrunch and just delivered on our end. It's delivered at the CDN layer, but yeah, it'll be hosted through our platform. You could also push it to like your CMS, for example, but you can't have that like both different views by pushing it to your CMS. Cool.
Golden nuggets from this. Put in the chat any big takeaways or golden nuggets.
Oh, there's one on hearing Reddit is also a great way to get cited. It definitely is. It shows for a lot of third parties, top of funnel type of queries and prompts. We have a post on or a data study on Reddit. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Called the Reddit Paradox. So one thing about Reddit, maybe you can share this, Eric. One thing about Reddit is it does have like a high volume of citations, but like sometimes those citations are not always the citations that are the ones that you want where you'd start that are low funnel. Like, what are the best products for X reason? A lot of times, like there's niche articles and niche publications that show or get cited ahead of Reddit for that. So the point of what I'm saying here is you should go in and look to see what citations have authority, and then use that as your guiding light versus just hearing that the experts say use Reddit and use Reddit then, or try and like rank on Reddit.
That's great.
Cool.
2 more minutes. Any other questions? Okay.
Nice. I'm looking back. I think I answered most of them, thankfully. So cool.
This is awesome. Super helpful. It's such an interesting space. And someone said, I forget who, but yeah, you guys are moving really fast at Scrunch about launching these new.
We ship fast. I'm even shipping stuff, although it's mostly like marketing website type stuff, but fun tools and things like that, using Claude Code and all this stuff. So when marketers can ship stuff, that's a dangerous world to be in.
Dangerous world, a dangerous world.
Cool.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. See you, everyone.
All right. We had a wrong link situation. So Anthony and Rob will be joining in a second here. If you waited or you stayed on, good choice. Good choice. This is going to be one of the most useful sessions, I think. It's going to be a live workshop with Anthony and Rob from FletchPMM talking about how to fix your confusing positioning. They're like one of the best in the world at this thing that they've done for like 500 plus clients, which is positioning work. And not just that, but specifically applying that to your homepage. So this is gonna be really fun. They're gonna give like 20 minutes. This is a 40-minute session. So they're gonna give 20 minutes of 15, 20 minutes of content, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. As part of that Q&A, if you want to upload your own website and get it talked about, get some free feedback, then you're welcome to do that. So get your websites ready if you want some free advice that would usually cost thousands of dollars, free for you today at Demand Day by Demand Collective. Rob, what's up? How you doing?
What's up there? Thanks for thinking of me. I'm hanging out in the Goldcast.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
All right. Let's see. All right, well, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Anthony's going to join, but it's okay. Anthony's going to join me mostly for the interactive components near the end. And so, yeah, like you said, I've got maybe 15 minutes of content. I want to share with you really a bit of our framework. I'll go ahead and share. I would love for this to be super interactive along the way. And so I'm going to challenge all the people lurking in chat. Bring this up here. I'd love to know like where people are based. So I'd just be curious, love to see a list of like where people are dialing in from. And then I'll get rolling here and I'm gonna have questions across the way. Boulder, Detroit, Chicago. Awesome. Great. Already a good start. For those of you who don't know who I am and who Fletch is, I'm one of the co-founders. We are a product marketing consultancy. Anthony's gonna join me here in a minute. And
I just promoted him to panelist. My first faux pas as an event host. I apologize, but we're here. Anthony's
no, he's like hiding in the crowd, like an SNL skit. We'll cut to him in a minute. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Nice with the backdrop. Cool. I'll look at. I'm not rocking on here. What's up, Anthony? So yeah, positioning consultancy. We only focus on positioning and then translating that positioning to homepage messaging. So we run a really structured, we call it a productized sprint process to do this. We've done this process with over 500 companies, some big, some small, lots of different industries. And so we want to share with you guys a bit of our framework in how we approach positioning, how we look at markets, and the strategies and how we develop them. But before we get into all that, I want to start with a little bit of a game. So I got the chat up here. I'm going to share with you all home pages, and I want you to tell me what you think the product is. So this is the first one here. That's socks. Bomb ass socks. No, Baba socks. Sorry, not bomb ass socks.
But also bomb. If you know, you know.
For sure. Well, all right, we got people that are getting this right out of the gate. Socks. This one is for sure socks. How about this one here? Phone cases. I'm just waiting to see bomb ass phone cases.
Yeah.
All right, the crew's got this one here. Phone cases. Great. Maxim's like, what the hell going on? All right, how about this one? Coffee. Nice. A lot of people say tea on this one. Yeah, and attribution software. Nice. Good wrinklegram. This one is coffee. How about this one? No idea. Smiley. No cheating, Dan. We got an insider. Random software. How about this one here? Dumbass socks. Great. Every software.
I don't know what it is. I want it though. Don't you want
AI
it?
shit's probably the best thing here. Do you want this, Eric?
Yeah, that sounds great. Workforce
Come
solutions,
on,
proven to deliver reliable results.
All right.
I want it and I believe them. It's awesome.
Let me get your credit card. We'll get you signed up, right now. How about this one here? Yeah, Matt's got it. He doesn't want it. Any SaaS website. Yeah, I actually particularly love that one. CRM, baby,
Yeah,
it could
funny.
be. All right, appreciate you guys like diving in on that. The idea here is that these things, they could truly be anything. And we see this a lot, especially in software, because it's the nature of software. It's super flexible, especially with AI. It's adaptable. There's all these use cases we cover. And because it could be anything, you end up with all that jargon BS that you see in those homepages that say absolutely nothing. Right? Our whole view on this, the way that we think people actually shop, buy, and evaluate for products, we believe that they won't care about your product at all if they don't know what the heck it is. Not a crazy idea. Some people think we're crazy for this, but this is like the founding component of our business that Anthony and I created as we're looking at all these homepages. And so this is what we have to solve first and foremost. The thinking being that until we answer what it is, we can't actually do any of the real positioning work. We can't make any arguments of value against what it's better than without that context. And so I want to introduce this framework of this is basically how we start to think about positioning, how we look at markets, and how we even solve for some of this stuff. So we break down positioning into this pretty simple equation. It's the combination of your target market, who you're actually focusing on in your go-to-market efforts, and your differentiation, why you're better than the alternative. And as I said, you have to land target market first. In most cases, you have to define what the heck the thing is in order to then differentiate. And the mistake that we see is that a lot of companies, rather than starting with like, wait, who really is our market, they'll try and start with differentiation, which is usually this big, broad, fluffy thing. And we think that's a flawed way to start because in general, your differentiation is going to change depending on who you're in front of, who you're actually speaking to. And so we look at target markets, but then this is the question of like, what the heck's a market? What defines a target market? And so the way we look at markets, we think they're one of the best first slices of looking at market spaces is breaking them into these two different groups. One side, what we call the immature market. So these are folks that are not really aware of your exact tool. They might be doing something that your tool might be a fit for, but they don't know it by name, and that's what makes them immature. And the mature side of the market, these are people that have your tool or have evaluated your tool, and there are huge implications across each of these groups on your positioning and messaging. And so when we look at these markets, what we find is that these categories have different, what we call maturity mixes. And so the way to think about this is that the percentage of a given market category that knows your type of tool exists, we would call that a mature category. And so if anyone's familiar with this technology adoption curve, it would look something like the majority of the market already has, evaluates, or is aware of your tool, your category of tools. And we call that a mature market because it's mostly filled with mature buyers. Some examples of these are like things we buy every day: gym shoes, mobile phones, email, CRMs. Like these are easily recognizable heuristics of categories where everyone knows what they are, and maybe they've evaluated one and most people are actually using one altogether. In immature category, it looks something like this, where the majority of the folks in that market that might be a fit for the product don't actually know what the heck the thing is, right? The only people that really know it by name are the innovators, the tinkerers, the early adopters. Maybe it's as it starts expanding here, but this is in general an immature market. Examples of this, think like really bleeding edge technology products that are launching: personal knowledge graph builders, at-home neurostimulation devices, synthetic user simulation platforms. Even as I say all of those, I bet most people are like, what the heck is that? Because I would bet that most of you are immature buyers in that market, even if you might be doing, I don't know, user testing of sorts, health stuff at home, and even organizing your information. Like you may actually fit into this market, but you're an immature buyer in that market. Here's another huge implication, and this goes into target market: the idea of the label you put on it. This category label actually dictates whether your buyers will be mostly immature or mostly mature. And so if we flash back to the iPhone when they launched, if they were to call themselves a pocket computer, most people have never bought or heard of a pocket computer. Like, what the heck is that thing, right? By definition, they'd be an immature buyer of that product. Whereas, and this is what they decided to do, they called themselves a phone, basically the next iteration of the phone, much more relatable. Almost everybody had a phone, many people had cell phones. And so for them, they were framing it in a way where the majority of their market, they were going after the mature buyers in that market. And as you'll see here, same exact TAM, different maturity mix, right? And so another example here to see like how this walks out into like, well, okay, so what? How does this change positioning and messaging, if at all? And so if we pretend that we're selling a CRM, let's just pretend that we're a Salesforce killer, we've got an amazing UX, and we're out there thinking like, how do we position this thing? We could position it in this CRM market category for the immature buyers, where when you look at them in their current state, they're likely would say something like this, like, well, I'm keeping track of my leads in a spreadsheet. Because remember, these folks, they don't really know what a CRM is. They have little to no awareness of this category. Whereas another part of the market that we could position for already has a CRM, probably already have Salesforce in a lot of cases, where they would say, hey, I'm using Salesforce. Yeah, I know what a CRM is. And so when we then move into like, all right, how do we talk to these folks? How do we go to market? Can we say a message that resonates with both of them? And the short answer is no, because their context is totally different, right? So when we go up to the person who doesn't know what a CRM is and they're keeping track of things in a spreadsheet, we have to say something like, hey, we have a better way to keep track of your leads. You're doing this manually. Like, we have a way to automate this. Like, we can automatically do all that. You don't have to do this manual thing anymore. Whereas the person who's using Salesforce, we have to say something totally different. We have to say, look, are you using Salesforce? Like that big clunky thing of junk with all the crazy reporting that's unusable? Like, you're going to like our product. Our CRM's better. It's got like the more modern UX. You'll enjoy using it, right? The mistake, again, is broadening the message, or imagine flipping these messages of like, oh, I'm going to deliver this. You'll actually enjoy using our CRM to this immature part of the market. That person's going to look at you and be like, what's a CRM? What do you mean I'm going to like your CRM? I don't even know what it is. In the same way that if I said, hey, person using Salesforce, no more manual updates, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're like, it's 2026. Like I've been not doing things manually for like 10 years. Like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense. And so again, the takeaway here is for different parts of the market, these different segments, we have to position and message completely differently. And so when we approach this, we're really getting into like, okay, different messaging, different positioning strategies. And so the way we think about mature buyers, this mature side of the category, we think about this like buying shelf space in a store. And so if we think about this metaphysical software store, which granted isn't a real place, but we think mimics like very similar to how still people buy, shop, and evaluate for different tools. It's a lot like them walking the aisles with a shopping list. And these tools are going to be categorized in these different areas. The idea is there's built-in demand for this already. Like people already pay for certain tools. We need an HRIS, we need a CMS, we need a CRM. And so from a positioning standpoint, you have to position against the other vendors on the shelf. People already know what these things are. There's high awareness. And so what you call yourself, the shelf you put yourself on, again, dictates this competition, where if you call yourself an enterprise AI assistant or agent, you're going to have to somehow differentiate against the ChatGPTs of the world, the Gemini, right? There's a couple things to know about going into these mature markets from a positioning standpoint. It is not a level playing field. Like, it's just not fair. The bigger, more mature market leaders are going to get most of the shelf space. We're in the CRM market. Salesforce probably is going to get the majority, maybe followed by HubSpot and then everybody else. The other thing, when we're even deciding what shelf to even put ourselves on, is we could look at, well, hey, where are there big shelves that maybe are growing, or small shelves that are growing, and where are there shelves that are diminishing? And so even just, and this is easily accessible information, is like, how big's the CRM market? How much shelf space do they get in the store? Do we want to put ourselves in big or small markets that might be growing or shrinking? So that's another factor when we're deciding these things. The mistake, I'll jump back here, a lot of startups especially, they'll look at this, even though they're building maybe an enterprise AI assistant, they'll say, oh, I don't want to go compete against Gemini and ChatGPT. I don't have $10 trillion of VC money coming in, which is very reasonable. And what they'll do is they'll make up a name. We're not an enterprise AI assistant. We're an AI operating system. Or they'll make something up. It's like, great. They've eliminated their competition, but then they've eliminated all the built-in demand. In other words, no one's going to go look at that shelf. It's in an aisle that almost doesn't exist. Because you just made it up. Of course, it's not on a shopping list. Of course, people aren't shopping for it, right? So we got to be careful. Like category creation, you can't just make up category names. That's just not how that works. The alternative is when we go position an immature part of the market, it's a lot more like door-to-door sales. The idea here being they're not out there looking for your software. There's no budget line item for it. They're not aware of the naming of it. You have to go to them and basically do all of this education of saying like, hey, you're in this scenario or you're doing this thing that like, there's a better way to do it. And you're trying to convince them to adopt this new thing and carve out money that they maybe haven't, dovetailed yet for a new product or solution. And so we frame this of like, when we're talking to immature markets, we're positioning and speaking to the job to be done. This is our anchoring point. And so think of that as the reference point where we can meet them where they are because we can't use a category name. Some examples of this. And so Vance is a great example. When they launched, there was no such thing as a SOC 2 automation tool platform thing. So if they were to say, hey, we're the best SOC 2 automation thing, they'd be like, what is that? Instead, they had to anchor on the job to be done, which for these security leaders, like preparing for a SOC 2 audit was the thing that they were figuring out. The other implication here is the competitive set. Even though there was other YC-backed companies that may have been building for this scenario, that's not the direct competition through the customer's lens. The competition is the status quo way of preparing for a SOC 2 audit, which in those days was manual work, binders, consolidating stuff into spreadsheets, generating these reports manually. That's what Vance is positioning against, this complex, time-consuming, tedious process. There's a better way. Calendly is another good example. There was no such thing as scheduling automation tools 10, 12 years ago, right? And so they are positioning on the job to be done, scheduling meetings against the status quo, which you think about like, how did you schedule meetings before you had a tool like Calendly? Probably like, hey, I'm free at 1. What about Wednesday at 11 a.m.? Does that work? All that back and forth email, that's what they were positioning against, right? And what's interesting is that in a given market, right, because these people are in different phases, different contexts, you have to make the choice. And we think that it's better to make a primary choice of like, where are we mainly going to position for the immature part of the market or the mature part of the market? And Calendly is an interesting case study because on their run up to many tens, hundreds of millions, they were just positioning for the immature part of the market. But then at some point, the market shifted, that percentage, that marketing, that maturity mix became that the majority of their opportunity is actually not getting people to adopt their first scheduling tool. It's to pull market share and defend market share in a lot of ways from these other direct competitors, SavvyCal, Cal.com. And so late in 2024, they actually shifted their whole strategy. And it showed up on their homepage. totally changed the way they talk about the product. So instead of like, hey, here's this new way of doing scheduling, here's how it works, it's, hey, we have the best scheduling tool. We have things they don't have, right? Totally different elements of their product and business were then kind of defended in this approach. And so you got to make a choice in general. We think the best way to strengthen is to decide in a given market, who are you actually going after rather than trying to bleed it together or do too many things at once. And so to kind of close this out, we'll bring Anthony in as well to this, and then we'll open up to QA and even look at some homepages, plenty of time for that. I want to see if anyone was paying attention maybe in chat, and I want to see like, how would you go and position these companies if you were launching these companies back when they launched, right? Would you take a mature route, putting them in a category? If so, I want to hear like, what category would you put them in? Or would you go the immature route? And if you go that route, what's the job to be done that you might anchor it to? And
Rob,
so this first one here,
this is basically when they launched, right? Like if you were
when they launched, circa 2012. So, we're 14 years ago, Coinbase launches. How would you go about positioning them? What was kind of what comes in?
Answers are flying in.
Immature. What's the job? What's Bitcoin? So if you're going immature, like how do you position this, right? What is the job you anchor this to? Thanks, Stephen. New crypto fund tracking.
Get involved in crypto.
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin.
You wouldn't think it would make sense to say we're the best crypto exchange of all the crypto exchanges. This is why all the other crypto exchanges suck in 2012.
Yeah. The crypto operating system, or the decentralized crypto operating system. Good work, good slap. I don't know.
Yeah. And in general, they did go the immature route, right? Anthony called it out. There were other crypto exchanges. Just nobody know. Eventually, nobody could tell me the name of who they were, and nobody knew they were a thing. They were betting on more immature people getting into this activity, and this is effectively how they went to market. And they created some of the demand for this, obviously, but then they kind of rode all the education of other people doing the same. And only now can they basically hold up and say, hey, we're the best, biggest crypto exchange. How about this one? Figma, 2012, also 14 years ago. Lucas says mature.
It's crazy they launched in 2012.
It's like, I'll quote Anthony, one of Anthony's best friends. I'm pretty sure that's right, but don't look it up.
They launched in 2012. Don't look it up. They did. Don't look it up.
All right, mature, focus on design, Adobe.
We got some smart people in the house.
I know, that's what I'm saying. This is in fact what they did. And Anthony, you speak to this one. I know you found a lot of the background for this too.
Yeah, you look up the initial like press releases and press coverage of Figma, and Dylan Field, the CEO founder, is like, we're taking down Adobe. Like, we're going to market. They say they're cloud software. They really don't have any real cloud in the mix. Like, you still have to send the files back and forth over email. We're going to bring this collaboration, real-time collaboration. It was assuming that everyone knew Adobe, was using Adobe, like understand how these things work. It was not like, hey, UX designer, have you been designing UX on paper? Now you can have a platform to do this, because effectively that market was all mostly people mature who had used a tool like Figma. And Figma could have said, well, no, we're a brand new software category that you've never heard of, that you've never bought, and you should buy us. But it didn't match reality, because you would switch from Adobe to using them. Nobody would buy both. So they just launched in the mature category, said why we're going to take it down. And a lot of people, I think, confuse this and say, you should never launch in a mature red ocean market, right? Oh, that's a terrible way to start a business. I don't know. They IPO'd pretty recently. It seems like they're doing pretty good. They're the dominant player. They unseated all the other competitors, and they launched right in a real mature market on a shelf. Yeah. So this is it. It seems like it could be saying, oh, one route is better than the other, but they both just have different pros and cons.
Yeah. A couple more, and then we'll open this up. What about Airbnb? 2008. unconfident immature from Jordan. Mature from Gabriella. Category disruptive.
Because remember, the maturity refers to had people bought or evaluated the same type of tool as Airbnb. So what percentage of the market had used a tool like Airbnb? And
to the point where they would go in and be like, that tool, we're a better version of that tool.
Yeah, we are better than all the other tools in the same category as Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this dialogue here, because what happened, and it's interesting, there's some nuances here to this as well. What happened, I'm sorry, I have this one labeled wrong. They actually did do immature.
Like, oh.
This is a surprise, incorrect user error here. They did not position as a better hotel. Somebody said it in the chat, I forget who it was, that they were like going after a hotel replacement, but it was around the job of finding a place to stay.
And to the same point, if Airbnb had said Airbnb is a hotel chain, then it would have been mature. But precisely because they did not say we are a hotel, they said we're a different category. You've used category hotel to solve this job to be done, which is find a place to stay. You shouldn't use that category anymore. You should use a new type of solution, which is Airbnb, which is a completely different thing. So all the people in the market viewed Airbnb, they were immature buyers of a tool like Airbnb, which was a mechanism, a marketplace to stay in someone else's house. It was decidedly not a hotel. There's a theoretical world where Airbnb would call themselves like, we are a hotel, and somehow explain that. But again, people think hotel, they're expecting a big building with lots of rooms and staff, and I go in and I check in and they ring me up and stuff like that. So that's why, the bulk of their buyers had never bought a solution like Airbnb. So it's anchored to the job, and the enemy was just a different category.
Yeah. Anthony, you touched on something there, just like nuances, like another aspect of referencing a category and positioning on this mature side of these markets. It comes with the baggage of those categories. So when you're talking about like, I expect there to be room service and a concierge and all these rooms, like if they were to do that, they would have then had to overcome all the objections of like, well, who does my bed in the morning? Like, who is their breakfast? It's like, well, not really, which makes sense why it pushed them into the mature side.
Can I touch on something?
Okay, last one.
Well, yeah, but even last thing, Casey had a good comment. Didn't they want to take share from hotels? Totally. 100%. But again, it's a question of, do we want to be in the same category as them? Call ourselves the same name. Like you would look at the list and be like, here's the top hotel chains. And it would be Hyatt. It would be, Best Western. And then Airbnb is the #1 hotel chain. But they said, no, we're not a hotel chain. So we don't even belong on that shelf. We're over there. You can't steal money, though, from other categories for sure. Like anytime you build a new software category, you're going to have to steal budget from a different category, right? Like, oh, we would have allocated budget to this one software, but we're actually going to allocate it to a new category. We need to create a new budget line item. So you could definitely still be stealing market share from other categories, but it all comes down to, what do you call yourself? Does Airbnb call themselves, we are a hotel chain, just like all the others with some cool modern features, or are they fundamentally position themselves as something different?
Yeah. And it cascades into the execution, because if they go into the hotel side, then they have to answer the question of like, well, how are people shopping for hotels? Which then they maybe had to solve like an SEO like challenge of like, how do they show up when it's like looking for the best hotel in X? Like, how do they even get in there? It dictates a lot of what they have to do under the hood with their teams.
Can I make a quick? This is a theme that I see with startups often, which is like the CEO when raising money is saying we're taking money from hotels. And then the CEO is like, that's our strategy. But then that just makes its way to the homepage. And then it's like, it's actually not the most effective positioning. Is that something you guys see as well?
For sure. But again, even in this, like saying, hey, we're an alternative to hotels. Our whole take is that it's still rooted in the main activity of this. So like that message in terms of a strategy, I think would have been half bad. But it's more about just an understanding of like where you're meeting the buyer at. And so even the phrasing of like, hey, we're like an alternative to a hotel, like you're educating around a new way to uncover the job to be done. What you're also pulling on though, Eric, that we see is like oftentimes the the vision strategy doesn't tie to the reality of the today, and so it can be very dangerous to take this like, here's what we're gonna do, we're killing the PowerPoint deck, all these things, when it's like you look at the product and it's like much smaller in the time being. There's usually a big delta that has to be solved for, and it usually
Which
means
is hard
shrinking
for
down.
like the demand gen marketer at a startup because their CEO wants to put the vision on the website, and you're like, fuck, this isn't gonna work.
A couple other comments came in just to even help clarify this more. So Lindsay, perfect example. Weren't they also competing against Verbo? They were, but most of the people who had used an Uber had never heard of Verbo, because when it was this new emerging category, is my audio stop? I can't hear you guys.
No,
Robert,
you're good.
You're good.
I'm just laughing. You said Uber.
Oh, sorry. I meant because someone else commented Uber up above. I think.
Gotcha.
So Verbo and Airbnb, right? So Airbnb would be very silly to be like, this is why we are so much better than Verbo at a company level positioning strategy, because the vast majority of the market had never heard of either of these solutions. So if they had given airtime to Verbo in their messaging, it wouldn't have made sense. It would have just been free distribution to their smaller competitor that also was going after this mature market. Now, you could argue that Verbo, who currently is positioning themselves for the immature market, is pretending that Airbnb does not exist. You look at it and says, stay in a Verbo, don't, blah, blah, blah. You could argue whether or not that makes sense, because me, someone who has used Airbnb a bunch, and I see ads for Verbo, my first question is, well, why would I use this over Airbnb? I don't understand the difference. So there's probably a pretty large chunk of people who have used an Airbnb who now are seeing another solution, and it might help Verbo to verbalize, this is why giant market of Airbnb users, you might want to consider switching to something like Verbo, in the same way that Figma did against Adobe. They went to market in this exact mature space and said, this is why we're better. That was one point. And then another point for Uber, same deal. If Uber had called themselves, we are a taxi company, then you would say this is very much, we're going out and pitching us as a mature buyer. But I'm pretty sure they explicitly said we are not a taxi. We are this new thing that's called ride sharing. And so you would say they still would have to explain that category, meaning the people who are shopping for or potential buyers for Uber are by definition immature, because Uber has to explain what's this new category called ride sharing service.
Okay, I want to say real quick, Anthony, that is definitely something Verbo should have verbalized.
Come on.
Yeah, baby.
Shout out to all the dads in the chat.
You stayed 3 hours at demand day, that's what you get. That's what you get.
One more thing on those lines, just while I'm on a roll, right? The last thing to think about too in this way is like, this is so prevalent right now with AI. People are calling themselves all sorts of fancy AI names, right? Well, no. We're not an AI agent. We're an AI operating system. We're an AI, whatever it is. And in their minds, they're like, I need to go evangelize everyone on why they would need this. And it's an immature market. And they're essentially pretending that there are no other AI solutions out there. But the problem is the market is seeing them on one big shelf called AI tools. Mm-hmm. And none of these new upstarts are positioning themselves against any of the other tools that are being evaluated. So the people are looking at these new startups that are like, AI for your business, automate your workflows with AI. The average person is like, well, wait a minute. Why the hell would I consider this over Claude Code? The earlier speaker was talking about. Why would I consider this over ChatGPT? And all these companies, because they've gotten confused about what shelf they're really on, are completely missing and giving the message to, like the person Rob said in his talk, the CRM user, saying, hey, you should use our CRM. You're going to be able to automate all your workflows, no more spreadsheets. And they're like, I already have Salesforce. Like, why? This is not convincing me why I wouldn't pick the much, much bigger, more trustworthy solution and take a bet on your smaller company.
All right, let's do one more, and then we'll truly open it up. Open Q&A, look at pages. That's what. Tesla, 2008. And I think we got an answer. Well, there's one answer. Donna. Yeah, Donna had one here.
Let's go, Donna. I love it. So engaged. She's seeing the slides before you do. That's the audience.
I think, I flashed it. We already got an answer.
Okay. If no one else
Donna's taking the cake. Immature, Casey Cox. Interesting. Mature. Eric says mature. Eric, you want to defend it live? Or are you
Well, it's just a better car, right?
That's what effectively they did, was a better car. there's a built-in demand for this thing, and they did some interesting things early on because obviously they have different like types of cars where I saw like combinations of efforts of like we're a better type of sports car, like luxury car, while also then kind of obviously leading into the electric car, right? So there's like some subcategorization that can happen obviously as they evolve into different product areas. But yeah, they weren't like, look, a better way to drive, a better way to get transportation, get around town. Like they weren't literally like recreating the wheel of this. They just reference what people are already shopping for.
Another one. Nice. There we go. Keep them coming.
Even when people describe why is a Tesla, like what's differentiated about a Tesla, they describe it related to other cars, right? Well, I was thinking about buying a gas car. I bought a Tesla car instead. Same shared language, right? We're both cars. And this one, oh, it's amazing. I don't have to go to the gas pump anymore. I don't have to, it can drive itself, like all that stuff. But it's very much looking at a car. Like you could argue this new cyber cab maybe is a different thing because it's like people are like, is this my car? It doesn't even have a steering wheel. I'm going to put it around town. You could maybe make the argument that's people are immature buyers of that. And maybe you would buy a car and a cyber cab because that's another aspect too. Is it's like
they're calling it the robo taxi. So they're already kind of leaning into the taxi side.
Maybe more almost on the taxi category at that point. Right. And again, if people haven't bought a taxi before, then theoretically they're kind of immature buyers of a taxi because they don't really know what does that take to buy a taxi.
Well, it's funny now but they're almost coming into the Uber space. So it's more like, I don't think it's a buy. I think it's hey, take a robo taxi instead of a taxi.
Oh yeah, they are doing that now. But I think they say they want to sell it to like millions of people. Like you would you wouldn't have a car anymore. You would own a taxi, which is like,
I'm looking at their site. It's literally offered in Austin, Texas right now. So maybe I should download the robo taxi app. See what's what.
Thomas had a great point. Imagine they sold it immature. It's a computer on wheels. Yeah, like a wheeled computer. It's not a car. It's a wheeled computer. You keep your car, but you should also buy our wheeled computer.
That's great.
All right, are we going to questions?
Yeah, let's get into questions. Yeah, that was the last quiz. No homework.
All right, put your questions in the chat. I have one quick one, which is if you're a demand marketer in-house, maybe we'll say like you're at a gross trades company, you have like a VP of marketing, you're a demand gen person, it's maybe Series A plus. How do you know if you actually have a positioning problem and this is like something that you should prioritize?
Yeah, I can take the first stab, Anthony, if you unless you want to dive in.
Go for it.
So
I like our questions on the website.
That's good too. I was going to take a different route. Do you want to do the questions?
We have these 5 questions that we talk about. We have them listed on our website. The most, do you have a positioning problem? And we say, check all that apply. Number 1, people read your website, but they don't understand what you do. Number 2, people get what you do, but not why they should pick you over the competition. Number 3, you're going after multiple segments, so you don't know who to prioritize. Number 4, people in your company explain your product in wildly different ways. And number 5, you have multiple products and you're struggling to explain the suite in a simple way.
Those are great. Perfect. All right. Any more questions on the general flavor before we get into actual homepages?
I'll layer in one more just to what Anthony shared, just because, you're talking about demand gen and our immature. We see there's these 2 sort of layers of demand gen, depending also about like how mature, immature of a market you're going after, because sometimes the demand gen efforts is actually evangelizing the thing your product's for. So in other words, in our model, you're trying to create demand for the new job, where like, if we go back to like Coinbase, there's a world where some of your marketing efforts are just getting people who are not buying and selling crypto to buy and sell crypto. Even if they don't use your product, it's like, I need people doing that so that I can then position my product as a better way to do crypto. And so we see a little difference, this like striation between creating demand for the job of the new market and then creating demand for your product relative to how they're doing that job today.
There's a question about category creation. Am I able to share my screen, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Just give me a second. So it's really funny. As you could imagine, if you are going the immature route, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. Does that mean I'm doing category creation, which is kind of a scary phrase? And like you've heard Some people say it's the bee's knees. Some people say it's like super expensive, and why would anyone try that? Such a stupid idea. In reality, there are two different types of category creation, and one of them is exponentially easier and less expensive than the other one. So the first one is where you create a new category that fits a defined existing job to be done. So for example, people are already doing something. They just don't have a dedicated tool for it. Calendly, Rob gave the example before. Perfect example. People were already scheduling meetings. They just didn't have a dedicated tool for it. And so Calendly comes out and says, we've created a new category for this existing job to be done of scheduling meetings. And then the name of the category is usually just the name of the job to be done. Like, it's a scheduling platform for scheduling meetings. They're usually like pretty one and the same and interchangeable. This one is actually not that expensive. It can work really well. It's very easy to understand because you just say, hey, you know this thing you've been doing that has a name? We're a software category that does that better, right? On the flip side, the second type of category creation that is exponentially harder, it can work, but it requires millions and millions and millions of dollars of VC money to pull it off, is where you actually have to first create the new job to be done and then create a category for it. So usually it's the combination of disparate smaller jobs to be done that you want to say all are actually one larger job to be done. So take someone like Clay. Clay takes all these 5 jobs to be done, right? I need to integrate technology, automate my workflows, get data hygiene and quality. I need to make dashboarding and reporting, embedded AI and intelligence, and effectively saying, I know that these are currently owned by lots of different departments in different groups, but they actually should all be owned by the same person or same department. And there's a new job that we're going to coin called GTM engineering. And so they go out and they convince everyone that this bucket of disparate jobs to be done actually are all part of one larger job to be done called doing GTM engineering. So much so that they say, and in fact, this job to be done should be a literal job. You should hire a GTM engineer, a new role for this function. And then a bunch of Silicon Valley companies adopt it. They say, we're going to hire GTM engineers. And again, this takes lots and lots of money and is accelerated by the fact that Clay can be used by individual rank and file people without having to go top down through a big enterprise sale. People just adopt it. So they got this community groundswell. They had a ton of thought leadership around this. They had people using it for agencies, pushing the GTM engineer narrative, the Clay agencies, all this stuff. So this can work. It's just very hard and very expensive. Another one is like Gainsight, right? Like Gainsight, people often say coined the term customer success. They said all these disparate jobs to be done, which were check in how it's going with existing customers, try to upsell existing customers. Those are owned by customer support. Sometimes the product people own those. Sometimes it was a sales thing. Gainsight says, actually, that is a new type of job to be done called customer success. You should staff this role with a customer success manager. And guess what? By the way, Gainsight is the customer success platform. So again, very, very hard to do, can work, but it's exponentially harder than saying I found an existing job to be done and I've created a category for it. So long explanation, but hopefully helpful.
It cracks me up on the Gainsight example because Sridhar, one of their co-founders, did a project with us with this new
venture.
Yeah, we did. And he was like, yeah, we created a category with Gainsight, and his whole stance was never again. He's like, despite the great outcome, he's like, never again. It was so challenging and difficult.
That's what, yeah, I see that over and over and over again. And there's this quote from it's a Sarah Snowflake. She was like, if you want to educate a category, congratulations, your sales cycle just became 2,000 months. And it's like, it makes CMAI is one of our sponsors for the community. They started as like, people, you should care about doing ABM and it's difficult, whatever. And then they just switched to like better 6 Sense, more AI native, modern. And for that exact reason, it's just like the category is educated already. So much easier to sell into it.
We've got some sites. I don't know how we're doing on time. We could take a look at some sites. I know some people.
Okay, so I think we're at time, but this is the last session. So it's up to you guys, however
I've got maybe 5 more minutes, Anthony. I don't know where you're at.
Yeah, maybe a couple for like 5 more minutes.
Okay. I think the first one I saw come in here was maybe the cognition and then torque. So let me just share and then Anthony and I will tell you what we're seeing. So OCX cognition. Meet your customer AI analyst. Expansion installing. We can't see it really enough. It can. Predicting customer failures.
I'd be curious to hear in the chat if anyone's still thinking about this. Do you think they are selling a new category, or do you think they are selling an existing category?
Interesting.
Existing.
Okay.
How many of you guys have shopped for AI analysts? Who's like the market leading AI analyst?
I would even cut it a different way. Who have you hired as a customer analyst?
ChatGPT, someone said.
Because that was my first impression looking at this. I was like, oh, a customer analyst. And at least I'm not familiar. I've never held that title, needed to hire someone. And I'm like, okay, and then, you can start to infer the job of like analyzing customers.
Yeah.
So I maybe think market research, but it's tricky as a reference point where it's like, hey, here's this thing. And then even just from a positioning messaging standpoint, they're doing kind of a mixed bag where it's like by leading with this thing, I would have almost been like, here's where the other customer AI analysts fall down where we don't, I think they're explaining a little bit more around a job, but the job isn't inherently clear.
And Rob, can you go back up for a second? Because another thing too that we see a lot of times is sort of just like people like problem dumping, but the problems aren't tied to a job to be done, which like makes it confusing, right? Like this was, if can you scroll back a couple through there if it gives you the option to maybe the arrows?
Yeah.
Right? Like even you're saying your teams are reacting to churn instead of preventing it. Okay, interesting. That's like a problem. What
Customer
job
success, maybe like
maybe
reacting
it's
to
tied
churn.
to a customer success thing. Expansion is stalling. You can't see it. Like again, these are just like problems devoid of a specific job to be done. And so like if I just come to your house, like imagine the door-to-door sales, and I'm trying to sell this customer AI analyst, and I just knock on the door and I'm like, you're overweight and you have a crappy car and looks like some shingles are falling off. It's like, okay, thanks, I guess. You're just like making fun of me. Like what are you selling? There's no unifying job to anchor these specific problems to. I'm just like, this feels like I'm just going up and just pointing out things that suck about your business. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, like this isn't very helpful to me. Like, sure, okay.
Yeah. This is like where I tend to gravitate whenever I can't get it from the hero. I'm usually like floating up here. This is probably where the crux of the problem exists, just outside looking in. Whenever we see like bunch of solutions, bunch of different platforms, this is telling me that there's probably multiple products in play that maybe are trying to be summarized and positioned all together, which probably isn't the best route. And then we start to see like, oh, there are these different, teams and use cases. Oh, we're doing customer health monitoring. We're
and it almost, Rob, I wonder though if this AI analyst is like a Trojan horse product across their suite. Like they're like, oh no, don't worry about trying to buy this giant platform. We just have this little AI customer analyst that we're pushing as kind of the entry point. But even still, I don't think most people have shopped for or used or evaluated a customer AI analyst. And so I think you would still have to ground it in a job of saying, hey, how are you doing X? We are a better way to do X, right?
Casey, who dropped this one in, you framed this kind of right in terms of like the questions we would ask around like, where does the share of wallet come from? Like one of the big questions that's like underneath all of this, like even inside of our framework, is like, what are you replacing? What are you better than? So when you ask about wallet share, like, is this coming out of customer success where it's like, yeah, part of Gainsight's broken? Or is this coming out of sales where it's like, yeah, part of Salesforce isn't right? Or is this coming out of, even just like human capital budget of like, yeah, that research team that you have, like we're replacing them. Like those are great questions to ask to start to unpack this of like, where do we even place this, even relative to their budget line item? I like the way you teed it up. Okay, the other one that came in, I think next was Torque, which I had to double check because I had seen this site before. So I don't know if we chatted with maybe an indirect competitor once upon a time. But every alert needs attention. Not every alert needs a human. The AI SOC platform that helps security teams triage, investigate, and respond to threats faster.
Stock platforms we did a project around this, didn't we, Rob?
A few, yeah. So real category, there's a good, more mature side of the mix, right? Most people have heard of them. I think it's funny. So I have a little bit more context on this. One of the debates we get into often with AI is how much awareness are there around AI SOC platforms? Because there's a couple different framings that come into play. There's a world where you position in this mature buyer, hey, SOC platforms, we're the AI SOC platform. Here's what current state looks like. And then there's this other world, because I know there's a lot of players entering into this space. There's probably 30 or 40 competitors that call themselves an AI SOC platform. with relative, again, you have to really consider the awareness of this. Where are you positioning against the other AI SOC platforms? Is that what you're replacing and trying to stand out to here, and what you're really competing with through the people that might buy this?
I wonder too, Rob, like even the H1 makes me feel like they are probably saying what's wrong with the other SOC platforms. I would assume like every alert needs attention, not every alert needs a human, is probably in a sideways way calling out the other SOC platforms that maybe force a human to deal with everything. And they're like, we can actually make that better. So this might be, if that's true, this could be a decent argument of why our SOC platform over the other SOC platforms.
So it was interesting, and I snuck a peek before we looked at this one. There's something interesting in even the testimonial that tells me there's like a bit of a mixed bag going on, and probably some decisions that need to be made. So like even if a customer, not calling it the category, Torque is the first solution we've seen, right? Like this, I've never seen anything like this. Is kind of what this is implying, that actually enables my team to mitigate and alert against these things.
And that's even that second half, Rob, could be like the first one to actually do what it's supposed to. You know what I mean? So
maybe, but I have more of the questions of like, is there a world where you're like, hey, we truly are the better way to mitigate issues? Here's what it looks like now. And again, I have a little context here where a lot of this is being done manually. We're like, sure, there's a SOC, but there's these SOC analysts that are in play where you're like, look, you're doing this now. It's super manual. You're stitching it together. The SOC does a little bit. Your team does a little bit. We have this new solution that actually, and that they're really speaking to the teams, that lets your teams do this in a better way without burnout. And so, yeah, I think this one has questions. There's like some good things, some good reference points, but I wonder if what's happening is we're doing partially positioning for the immature part of the market and partially for the mature, which kind of leaves you in that awkward in between space for both those groups.
Can I ask you guys one more question and then we can wrap?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of a meta question, but I think will be useful to the audience. You guys are like so insanely good at refining the way you communicate these concepts. Like I've seen multiple iterations of the ways you explain this stuff. And that's like a thing that a lot of companies need to get better at as they're doing communication to prospects and to the market with the metaphors that you're using and simple language. And you just like you've clearly iterated like constantly. Do you have any like, I don't know, any advice or things that have been like super helpful to you in that process? Is it just that you focused and like you have these conversations with real customers all the time and then you like talk about them with Anthony or like anything else? Is that question?
It is a lot that like number one, have a co-founder, like
as
our wives can attest. Like Anthony and I are just usually arguing about this stuff day in, day out. But a lot of the iterations you see are usually they're echoes of pain that we experience in the work with real companies. Of like
trying to explain it. Yeah.
It's like they didn't quite get it. It's like, wait, that's not quite right. Or what has happened, and less and less. I don't know if it'll ever stop, but like we find the edges of the frameworks that we put together. We will truly find an edge case that breaks it. And we're like, this model's not right. Like something is broken, which forces us to go back to the basics of like, wait, is there a new way to rebuild this up where this edge case comes in? And it's kind of just been like, you go through hundreds and thousands of those edge cases, and over time you keep trying it. And I'm sure Anthony has a take, but a lot of times it blows up in our faces. We try it, like, oh, that definitely didn't work. Like even a version of what we presented and shared today, we've explained a more detailed version of that just flopped and didn't work. And it's like, well, okay, it didn't work. We got to fix it. Anthony, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think that my only thing I would say too is like, if the broader you spread yourself, either in the coverage of your product and platform or the industries you serve or whatever it is, or as a consultancy or marketing agency or whatever, the broader you go, the less you're going to be able to get these really deep insights. And since the very beginning of the business, we were like extremely dogmatic. We've only done this positioning sprint essentially as our only service for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. And so there was never any upsell. There was never custom consulting, just this one thing now over 500 times with 500 B2B SaaS companies. So it's like, once you get the repetitions, like every time you think you've hit the rock bottom of like, okay, I figured it all out, something will break. And you're like, oh wait, there's this whole part. Like I still know where the rough edges of our framework are. And I'm like, we're going to have to spend more time really dialing in that piece of how these things fit together. But it's like, if you stay broad just in general, you're never going to be able to get as important and deep enough insights as you would like. And so the focusing of it is kind of a way to like really crystallize it because you just keep looking at it from different angles.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, like, if marketers could have a mechanism to do that, where you're like talking to customers over and over again with a friend who likes this stuff, intellectually curious, and you just like refine it over and over, like the messaging would get so clean. All right, we're at time, guys. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thanks for
Okay,
having us, man.
we've dwindled. Put in the chat though. Give us another rating, 1 out of 10. I'm gonna give this one 250 out of 10. This was
I heard
great.
2 and I was like, oh, brutal.
Yeah. Let's go. 1,000, 10,000, 251 from Chris. All right, understood. Thank you guys
Has
so
today been
much.
like a telethon for you, Eric? And you're like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last session.
This is the last one. I've been I have to pee pretty bad again. 2 coffees deep, but this is great. Yeah, find you guys at what you guys want to plug anything. How can people be useful to you?
I think Anthony's been plugging along in chat. You're killer at that. Basically, reach out to us on LinkedIn. That's where we hang out. We can join the conversation. Send us
The
a DM.
newsletter.
And we launched a newsletter. So check out our site, FletchPMM.com/newsletter. That's where we're going to be sharing more in-depth stuff that maybe LinkedIn doesn't let us go deep enough.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much. This is amazing. You guys are awesome. Yeah, a must follow on LinkedIn. This is it. We're done. We're done. You guys don't have to listen to me talk anymore or anyone else. So everyone have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for coming. This was very fun.
Congrats, Eric. See y'all.
You guys. All right. See everyone. Have a good rest of your day and a great weekend.